manager of Bathurst. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on Wiradjuri homelands that were never ceded, and I acknowledge traditional custodian of the land, past, present, and emerging, and any Indigenous people joining us today online or in person. This is actually a really good timing to have this local study librarians meeting in Bathurst, as this year is an important year with 200 years of martial law being declared in Bathurst. When 200 years ago there was Gudiara on the Wiradjuri homeland, and this was called the Bathurst War. And when I first came to Bathurst 8 years ago, there were not many people that actually knew about the Bathurst Wars at the time. So it is a really important year because now there's much more truth telling that is happening around this history that has been hidden. And so that shows the importance of the work that you are all doing with history, making sure that migrant history, women's history, First Nation history is not forgotten in the work that you are doing, because this all make the texture of the society we live in. So it's really good to be in our new collections facility, which we are not supposed to call the shed. And for those of you that are here today, you get to have a tour, and it's fantastic. So Bathurst Library used to have the heritage listed School of Arts collection. It has recently been moved now to the collections facility. So no doubt Tim will show you where that is in your tour, won't you, Tim? Okay, so this is such a great program, and I've done a few roles. I was just talking with Michael about the different roles that I had, but for me, I think the best job in a library is local studies and brain. Always fascinated by what's happening there. So hope you have a lovely day. I need to tell you about some emergency things as well. Should there be an emergency back the way you came from or here, an emergency, go outside, go around the building, emergency point over there at the front. Okay. You've got the restroom over there, but you need to go around. Don't use that door there. You could get locked in. Go around this way, and there's a number of unisex toilets there. That's it. That's it for me. And I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Diane Barnes from the Bathurst Family History Group, who is going to talk to us about the Bathurst Female Factory, with a talk entitled "Penetrating the Past: Searching for the Bathurst Female Factory with Ground Penetrating Radar." It's really amazing.
Thank you for two very much. No worries.
Diane, I'll just see if I can get you set up here. So give me one moment.
Sure.
Let me know if I'm doing this wrong, Ellen. My tech guy did say the one up here is the best way to do it, but I can't access that. Okay. And
Thank you, Mary Kay. We're good to go. Right. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you today about a project that the Bathurst Family History Group organised back in September 2019. The group, Bathurst Family History Group, is a group that's been together for 40 years. So there's a long history of local history knowledge within the group. And one of the projects that we undertook in 2019 was to try and find out exactly where the Bathurst Female Factory was. Now, you might think, now, why did Bathurst have a female factory? And why did we bother searching for it? Well, Bathurst was the first inland settlement. It was actually this side of the river was the government settlement down near the river. On the other side of the river was landowners and land, so that was like private land. Over this side was the administration centre. On the administration centre, there were government buildings, there was police magistrate, doctor's cottage, a number of administration buildings and a commissary store. Commissary store was the only two-storey building built this side of the Blue Mountains. And it consisted of a standard plan, brick floor, wooden upper floor, thatch roof, slatted windows, and on a standard shape. Now, because on the north side, on that side of the river, there was a lot of farming going on, the need for especially women convicts was for labour was really getting desperate. So they were looking for cheesemakers, dairy maids, nursery maids, midwives, all those sort of professions that the women had. And there is also need for a centre for those women for times when they're in between work assignments, when they had confinements, when they had got into some trouble and needed to go back under supervision. It was also a building needed for housing abandoned children. There was quite a lot of abandoned children around the area. So it was decided to look at where they could actually put a female factory. So this is the plan of the commissary store. The commissary store had been vacant since about 1823. It was originally built to house the produce that would then be transferred to Sydney from the farms. But over that time, farmers sent their own produce to Sydney. The garrison moved in, the soldiers moved into that, but it was vacant from about 1823. So it stood vacant for probably about 10 years, and they thought that's an ideal spot for a female factory. It was a two-storey building, secure, and that was the normal shape of it. Now, the female factory started in 1833, finished in 1844 in Bathurst, and it finished because transportation had ceased. There were only 6 women left in the factory, and they were moved to the new jail. So the building was remodelled for the women. A fireplace was put in, an internal staircase was put in, a matron's quarters was put in. Now, nothing, of course, remains of that now, but this is out at Macquarie, which is a historical property quite close to Bathurst, and it has exactly the same structure as the female factory. And if you had a look on the previous plan, it's number 5. So the government had a range of plans and you just picked which one you wanted to have built, and number 5 is that, and that was used as convict quarters. Locating the female factory on some of the old maps. Here it says granary store down here. Very hard to find out exactly where that is in relation to today. So all we could do was know in some vicinity of that area, there was actually the commissary store that became the female factory. This is a closer look at the map. You can see where it says commissary store, but it's really hard to overlay that map on a modern map to see exactly where it is. So we know in the vicinity of where it is, we know what it looked like, but we have never been able to really establish where it was. So after it closed in 1844, it lay vacant till 1853, when the government settlement, of course, had turned into a township, and the area down there had actually been developed. They pulled down the old female factory in 1853 and sold off all the building bits to local builders to build whatever they wanted to build. And then nothing existed of the female factory at all. This is the 1846 map, and it really outlines where the factory was supposed to have been. In this map, Charlotte Street is actually marked, William Street is marked, that isn't on the other map. So it gave us a vague idea of knowing that somewhere around the corner of Charlotte and William Street that the female factory exists. Now, in 2016, the local council, the Bathurst Regional Council, actually did quite a study, the Government Settlement at Bathurst, Archaeological Management Plan for 2016, and in it, it lists in that region there the commissary store, but again, without any real direction exactly where it was. So it's always been a mystery as to know exactly where the female factory is. We've been down there, we had tape measures, we measured areas, we plotted out on maps, tried to work out where it was. There was a number of ideas whether it was on that side of the Charlotte Street, that side of Charlotte Street, whether it was under buildings that are already there. But anyway, over the years, it was always the mystery of where the female factory was. Sorry. Now, so this is the actual spot we looked at, was that sort of corner area of Charlotte and William Street. We still didn't know whether it was under the flats, under the buildings, under the roadway, under the grass, or under the parked area. We thought, how, obviously can't just go down there with a spade and dig up. It's public area and a busy roadway as well. So some GPR work, some ground penetrating radar, had actually been done out at the Safala Cemetery a couple of months before by Louise Stedding. They were trying to locate where the graves were out at Safala. And we thought, we wonder whether that's something we could do with the female factory. So we contacted the organisation to see how much it would cost. And the cost of doing ground penetrating radar was $5,250 on the site for a day or day and a half's work. All right, so we thought, oh, okay. So we applied to Bathurst Regional Council and we received a grant for $2,500. We raised the other $2,500 from members, from generous members that donated, and paid the rest out of our own funds. And we hired Louise Stedding from Steddinger Associates to have a look at ground penetrating radar. Of course, you just can't go down and radar. We had to apply through council, of course, and they gave us a grant. We had to have traffic management, risk management, close the roads off, designated people that had all the different jobs to do it. It's not an easy process at all. But the surveyed area that we looked at was that blue section up there, around that corner section we really wanted to look at. So, on a very bit frosty, very chilly 19th of September morning, Louise arrived with her equipment to start the radar process. And it's an interesting thing. It's just like a little box with wheels with a radar machine on it, up to a control on the handle that has a laptop that has a lot of the technical stuff in it, of course. Doesn't look very technical, but it actually is very technical. But before you can start that, you have to map out and grid out metre blocks on the roadway, so that when Louise ran over it with her machine, it would read what's underneath, and that would be number 5555, 556, whatever, so that they knew exactly where what they found would actually be. And that's a very kind council worker kneeling down, measuring the stuff out for us. Louise went up William Street to calibrate the machine to see how it went across the ground to get some readings about depth and such, because as you know, in a built-up area, there's sewage, water, telephone, gas lines, old marker lines, all that sort of stuff. Plus the area down there had always been, not only after the factory shut, but there was a gasworks down there was a timber yard, there was a rubbish tip. So there was a whole lot of other stuff that had to be sort of filtered out and gone through. And this is Louise showing Jen and I how to actually calibrate the machine. And she went through, she was very good actually. We had employed her for a day and a half. She ended up doing close to 3 days for us and did a lot more area for us. She was very interested to find something as well. But each area had a different depth that she had to try and adjust the machine to. This is Dr. McLaughlin and Louise sorting out maps, where to go, where not to go, what he thought, what she thought, what everybody else thought. Everybody had an opinion, of course, of where they thought it might be. And this is the process starting. The grid lines mapped out. Louise went up and down, up and down, up and down, measuring and making notes with her worker that was with her. Of course, ground penetrating radar has never been carried out in Bathurst other than that one time. So it became quite a community involvement thing. The community came down, we had media, we had members from the community all day, backwards and forwards, asking questions, not knowing there's a female factory, or people that knew things and come down and told us different things. So the community got quite involved. That's Marion telling the lady about the female factory. And it became quite a community event. We had quite a lot of people. And Louise was very good with people. She showed the children how the machines worked, so that she would just take a break and show them how it ran down, what it read, those sorts of things. And that's us, of course, Louise, all the team, everybody out looking at the stuff. That's Louise calibrating the machine over another area. And of course, well, there's always obstacles. So work around cars, work around different things to try and find it. Then there was conjecture whether that's exactly where the female factory was. Now we have that cars in the middle, we can't do underneath. But anyway, so Louise finished on the Saturday morning, finished the GPR, said it would be a number of months before we got the report. She needed to read through all the material. And in April 2020, another 6 months after, Louise presented her report. Now, what did Louise find in this report? The report we had to present to council. We presented it to council. We presented it to the public in a public forum as well, so that people knew what had gone on. And it was a 20-page report. There's a lot of pages of these, which are the readings that were found. And on it, you'll see a black line, that's tar. Bottom line, white, black, white. There, sorry, that's mine. Are the road bases, road services. And you can see down here, see that anomaly here, that blue there? That was an anomaly that she felt was far too down for any services to be. So she investigated that far further. On the report, there's quite a lot of those maps of different things. This is one of Louise's pictures. If you can see all the dots, they're all the things that showed up. So a lot of it's noise, electricity, gas, those sorts of lines. And she had to sort through all that material. That's why it took so long to try and find out if there was anything actually below those areas. Now, I'll read you from her report because it's the best way of doing it. The locations of allotment boundaries, water mains and sewer mains were provided by Bathurst Regional Council. Additional likely services have been marked where possible. They appear to include water, electricity, Telstra and gas. Anomalies in Charlotte and William Streets have two dominant matrices. Broadly, the upper matrix extends to a depth of 600 millimetres. Below this, there's a less disturbed deposit, contains anomalies from 600 millimetres to 1100 millimetres. So the top layer is the tar road base, but there's this anomaly down underneath, as you could see on that last slide. Across the horizontal planes, these deeper anomalies appear to be from human intervention. They lie below most modern infrastructure and remain undisturbed since being sealed by the upper deposits. Areas between surfaces also contain anomalies at various depths. Now, Louise took out what she felt was the service lines and all the other little bits and pieces out of her data and came up with those spots around. There appear to be likely remnants of the female factory in Charlotte Street and at its intersection with William Street. Remnants of the possible feature also extend along the frontage of former police buildings in William Street. Further interpretation may be made from the GPR plans provided in which depths and associations are included. Deeper features in the radiograms in Charlotte Street and possible features along William Street may represent physical remains from the early 19th century. In Charlotte Street, the feature may be the rear wall of the female factory, as shown in the 1831, 32, 44 and 46 plans. The potential presence of any portion of these early buildings in their subsequent phases of occupation from 1815 to 1844 will be highly significant as an early part of Bathurst and Australia's convict past. The survey of physical remains would add a dynamic dimension to the town's rich heritage. So how did she determine that we had the back wall of the female factory? What we refer to in family history as the blue line is this line across here, because it's at a different depth to anything else and it's in undisturbed land. The problem that is, of course, is that what do you do now that we've established we have the back wall of the female factory? What do we do? And so Louise raised three questions. You either excavate and risk damage to that site that's irreparable, or you conserve, you don't do anything and just assume it's a female factory, or you expose a certain high potential areas as identified and then try and see if that's what it is, a female factory. But when you overlay that map on the old map, you can see where the blue line comes down. This is a better one. This is the 1846 map. That's the factory. You can see the blue line that actually goes along the back wall. So what's happened since? Okay, so we've established we found the back wall of the female factory, but what do we do? To do any more excavation or such on the site in a built-up street area at Bathurst is problematic. Okay, if the minimum charge for doing something was from $20,000 on, we don't have those funds to do that. The risk of damaging that area with excavation, and if there's only a brick line or whatever that's down underneath there, is destroyed, and we don't know what that is then. So we decided, in conjunction with Bathurst Regional Council, not to do anything because that's the best way of conserving it. Janet Bingham, the manager for strategic planning at Bathurst, actually was quite involved in the process, and she has now registered that site as a site of state significance to heritage in the Bathurst area. It cannot be dug up, it cannot be modernised or anything done until with that plan in place now to protect it, without considering something happen, making sure that's well protected and not done. So that's about it, about our search for the female factory in Bathurst. And thank you. Is there any questions on that? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Alison. I was wondering if you're planning to work with council to put an interpretive sign or something close to the site?
Yes, there is a couple of signs down there. There's a couple of signs that are not anywhere near where the female factory is. Of course, now because we're established where it is. That would be the next thing to look at. Exactly what do we do? We talked about perhaps a small rose garden and chair quite near the corner to recognise the women. Parks are a bit stretched for money to look after the stuff. It's just the, I suppose, the logistics of where do we go and what do we do now from having that information. Because while you mightn't think it's a significant part of the history, there's over 600 women went through that factory. There are still descendants in Bathurst today from those women in the area. And those women are the women that actually sort of built Bathurst and the surrounding areas. So, yes, yeah, so thank you. Yes, sir.
Do you know if there's any other Bathurst historical mysteries that could benefit from this kind of
From
technology?
GPR?
Yeah.
The government settlement down there, we did much more than what we sort of had mapped out. We did up William Street to where the old police station was. We did across the road. There was nothing significant. Up in front of the police station, there is significant stuff down there. We don't know what, because some of the old maps don't show what's actually there. I think there's a magistrate's office and such that was there. There was nothing across the road. Given the amount of development that's gone on down there, roads realigned, put in, resurfaced, raised, those sorts of things. But it certainly was a good process to do. Cemeteries are where Louise works on, looking at finding bodies under the ground. So there's quite a range. I think as it develops, I mean, this was done, what, 5 years ago. So in that time, there's a lot more development that's gone on and more refined processes. If you ever watch Time Team, they're always out with their GPR and they run up and down all the time. Yeah, well, that's the sort of process it is. And it's a hit and miss whether you find anything or not. But we were just lucky to actually find that back wall. And everybody was quite relieved because we actually found the back wall. Well, we didn't find the back wall, we found the back wall. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. That's not very interesting. I really like the idea of the layers of history being visually there. Happy for me to introduce them? Yeah. Yep. Okay. Introduce the next speaker, Jan Page, the president of the Friends of Bathurst War Memorial Carillon, who's going to talk to us about a memorial with a voice.
Jan, which one would you like up? That's a good one, isn't it? The one that says librarians. It's a really good idea. I hope.
And Ellen, have we had any comments about people not being able to hear the question?
No, people have been, no comments around that, as people really like that presentation from Diane.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. And thank you so much for inviting me to come and have a bit of a chat about something I feel really passionate about. The iconic Bathurst War Memorial Carillon, something that I think everybody knows about. It's linked very closely with Bathurst. If you recognise Bathurst, you probably have seen the carillon as well. But as a start, I'd just like to also acknowledge the Wiradjuri people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting and Bathurst is situated. And of course, our War Memorial Carillon is actually on the side line between the river, Womble, and Walu, Mount Panorama, that most of you would know about. and pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. And I don't like standing just there. That's really good. So I said it's about a memorial with voice, and I want to work through just exactly why and how it's got that voice. But to start with, it's obviously a very iconic feature of Bathurst. It is one of 3 Carillons in Australia, the other 2 being Sydney University and the National Carillon in Canberra. It's the only one that had, it's one of 2 war memorial carillons. Canberra is not. And it is the only one that had a tower designed specifically for it. So in the case of Sydney University, it was originally thought they would build a tower because that's what the bells need. However, probably funds, who knows, they decided to put it in the existing tower of the quadrangle there at Sydney University. So it's the only one with a specifically designed tower. Bathurst is also fortunate in that we have a carillon, which is tuned bells, musical instrument of tuned bells, in the same precinct as a change ringing set of bells at All Saints Cathedral next door. And it's believed that it's the only place in the world that there is such a location of 2 towers with those 2 different sorts of bells. Now, the story of the carillon, it's our memorial to the first people of the First World War. The story goes back quite a while. Now, as in every community, there were lots of losses coming into the community from Gallipoli and so on. And in October 1915, the Mayor of Bathurst, Horace Beavers, came out. He was absolutely devastated because the numbers were quite significant. And one of those who'd lost their lives was one of his sons. 3 sons went to that conflict, and his youngest son was killed at Lone Pine on the 6th of August, 1915. So he came out and he said, look, people of Bathurst, at some point in the future, we need to have a memorial project down the track. So at the time, one of the aldermen, who was also a builder, came forward and produced an 80-foot tall flagpole. They put it in the middle of King's Parade in a garden that was there, and that became the focus of all the patriotic type activities that happened. After the war, all communities were busy creating memorials, and Bathurst was no exception, except it became an exception in terms of how long it took them. Other people were built, well, there were rolls of honour, plenty of those in Bathurst. Other people were building, obelisks, big statues, and so on and so forth. Bathurst got together in 1919 and decided, well, no, it's not the right time to consider it. They're still waiting for people to be repatriated. And the idea just sort of was left. But a committee was put together in 1920 to decide, well, what are we going to do? Everybody else has got things happening, but we haven't even got an idea started. And they tossed up the idea of, well, do we have a hall? Do we do something at the hospital? Do we have a memorial, a statue? What are we going to have? And the idea was, well, really, if we're going to raise funds at this time, perhaps it really should go towards supporting the war widows and their families. So once again, absolutely nothing happened at that point. However, and oops, that didn't work. That one. Okay, the following year, it was decided, well, okay, we will have a memorial. It will go in the centre of King's Parade, where the flagpole is, and who knows what it's going to be. But at least they had decided where they were going to put something. It just needed to be in keeping with King's Parade, which was seen as a real beauty spot in Bathurst with all the glorious gardens and so on. That year they decided to have a competition, gave £100 as the first prize, attracted 21 designs from around Australia, and awarded it to a fellow by the name of Mr. Cool, K-O-O-L, who apparently came from Brisbane. And I say apparently because they went to find the man and couldn't find him. apparently his design needed a few more details and specifications and so on, and he wasn't located. Now, you would think normally you would move to the second design or something, but apparently out of those 21 designs, there was nothing appealed. So absolutely nothing happened. There was speculation as what could have been, but there were no designs. So what the committee decided to do was they would go and consult Sydney sculptor Gilbert Doble. He was the fellow who was responsible for the sculpture of the soldier in the Boer War Memorial on that end of King's Parade, and the sculptures on the Evans Memorial, which had recently been opened on the George Street end of King's Parade. And you can see what a fine square, well, public square parade that is in Bathurst, and such pride that there was in the area, which became a bit of an issue a bit later on. So he came up with a design, which was this. Supposedly an angel representing justice, scales of justice, other figures around the bottom to be put in the centre of King's Parade. The other one was an idea that appeared in a paper of the same time, 1924. Don't know where that design came from. It could have been reflecting on somewhere else, who knows. But there were designs. Did the people like this? No. They couldn't agree on that one at all, because there was the issue, do we really want that to be a whole series of statues down King's Parade? And we don't particularly like it. So nothing happened until 1926. Along came George Hoskins. Now, George was a member of the committee that was trying to decide on what sort of memorial there was. He was an industrialist, part of the iron and steel industry getting started. He was living locally. He was an amateur astronomer, and he went on a business trip to England, where he heard and he saw the Loughborough War Memorial Carillon. Obviously got him thinking. Not at the time while he was in Loughborough, because it was constructed by the people of Loughborough and the bells from the Loughborough Bell Foundry. But he obviously didn't twig at that time that this could be something of Bathurst that could have. He went back to London and the idea must have developed, and he spoke to a bell foundry there that said, well, okay, you could have a tower 100 feet tall with 23 bells. And that was the idea he came back with. 23 bells are the minimum size of a carillon. So they weren't looking too ambitiously. They just wanted to have a carillon. That's the idea he came back with. An instrument, fixed bells, a musical instrument. Now, getting back to Bathurst and giving that idea was quite interesting, because after all, who knew what a carillon was? However, George, along with Robert Peacock, who was the former manager of the experiment farm, got together, and I believe, and I can't find the evidence, I believe that it was a rainy night. The committee was to get together. They were to decide what they would do. Two people turned up, George and Robert, and they decided, well, okay, we'll have a carillon. So carillon it was going to be. Now, these two gentlemen were obviously very enthusiastic about the idea, because they went around all the little communities around Bathurst and tried to sell, and sold, obviously, the idea that we would have a war memorial carillon. Robert Peacock was a fairly canny sort of fellow, because he recognised the time, obviously. Here we are in 1926, so that's part of, we're still post-war, we're very close to the Depression, and here they are saying, well, come on, we've got to raise money for a memorial. They sold the idea quite well, and as you can see on there, anything at all that could raise funds was an event that happened. Happened in the little villages, it happened in the city. There were grand processions, there were market days, anything at all, cookbooks, you name it, people did it. But as I said, he was quite a canny fellow, and he said, well, okay, we only build this thing when we've got the money. So rather than leaping in like we do these days, and we'll do it and then figure it out, we'll only build it as we have the money available. So by the beginning of 1927, there were sufficient funds to order a carillon. Now, that was very close to the time that Sydney University's carillon was being completed. Bells were coming into the country, and Taylors of Loughborough had an agent in Sydney who obviously saw that little note in the paper about Bathurst wanting to have a 23-bell carillon, and he said, well, excuse me, you could have a 35-bell carillon, and Taylors would be an ideal place for you to go to. So he sort of steered Bathurst in the direction of Taylor's Bell Foundry in Loughborough. And that's exactly where the bells were cast. What you see on the left-hand side there is the 35 bells of Bathurst's carillon when it was completed, assembled, made sure it all worked before it was pulled down, packaged up and shipped to Bathurst, well, shipped to Sydney, brought to Bathurst and then put in store around at Webb's warehouse. So the bells arrived. Each of those bells, they're beautiful, beautiful bells. Each of those bells has an inscription, or rather 29 of them have inscriptions of them. That largest bell there has the inscription on it, thus Bathurst and her surrounding villages honour their men of 1914 to 1918, lest we forget. The second largest bell has the inscription on it, to the ever glorious memory of our fallen comrades. Greater love hath no man than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. And the third largest bell has the Red Cross emblem on it for the war nurses. 29 of the other bells have the name of one of the local villages or localities around Bathurst that have contributed. So it is a memorial for Bathurst and district. So 29 of those bells had inscriptions and 3 bells had nothing on them at all, 3 of the smaller bells. Okay, so we've got some bells. We now needed a tower in which to house them. And they contacted, very fortuitously, I think, John Drummond Moore, who was an artist, an architect, a returned serviceman, and also he had designed for Sydney University a tower, which they chose not to construct in the end. So he had quite an understanding of what this might look like. He came to Bathurst with 2 designs, and as far as I can figure from a really grainy picture in a paper, being the only thing we've got, they look fairly similar. One, the one we actually have now, the other one looks possibly a little bit fatter. So that was decided upon, and construction began in the centre of King's Parade in January 1929, with them having to dig 47 feet into the ground to get bedrock to be able to put the piers and build up the foundation. So by the end of 1929, the area up to the top of the stairs, so when you look at the carillon, there's a brick area, some stairs. That's the platform on which the tower was to be built, and that's where it stopped because they'd run out of funds. So they had a ceremony there on Armistice Day that year, 1929, and absolutely nothing happened. It was decided in 1930 that perhaps we should try and raise a bit more money. So just think where we've got to now. We've got ourselves into the Depression. And it was decided that they would ask everybody to contribute something, contribute a penny. A penny would be great. And what we'll do is we'll cover that whole platform with pennies. That should get us some more funds. It didn't. They didn't get enough. And there it sat until 1932. So the top picture up there is the one I'm talking about at the moment. The mayor got out. He's sitting there in the front, along with some of the committee members on those front stairs. And he said, look, people of Bathurst, either you build this thing or you knock it down, because quite frankly, it's ugly and it's spoiling the beauty of King's Parade. Well, that got them thinking again. So they started a buy a brick program. So you could buy a brick for 2 pennies, obviously 6 for a shilling, 100 for £8. And slowly but slowly, they started to get the tower built. It stopped about that point for a while, but on the 24th of April 1933, Robert Peacock scrambled to the top of the tower and laid the last 6 of the bricks to complete the tower. And the first Anzac service was held there at that time. Over the next months, they gradually took the bells in, quite an operation from the bottom, wind them up with a windlass, get them up to the top, and also changed the gardens so that on the 11th of November 1933, the memorial was officially opened. Apparently, it was about 15,000 people who came to Bathurst. Bathurst didn't have a population that size. People came from everywhere to see that memorial open. The top picture is actually after the Armistice Day ceremony in the morning, all the wreaths that were laid, before the afternoon when everybody got together to observe the opening. And the following day, it was dedicated to all who had served in that First World, what we now know as the First World War. At that point, Bathurst became known as the Carillion City. And the memorial was known as a memorial with a voice. It was, as it says, the singing tower, a memorial with a voice to call to the skies that we remember. We remember not only in the morning and at the going down of the sun. Whenever the bells ring, we will remember them. So quite a beautiful concept, and the voice of Bathurst. How's that voice produced? Okay, so up in the tower where the bells are, the bells, and by the way, this is our first Carillionist, who was Hector Luck. Local people might recall Hector some years ago. He was the first official Carillionist, but he also had the job of attending to the bells, making sure the nuts and bolts and things were secure. The way it was produced was, as you know, a bell has a clapper on the inside. The clapper was activated by a little keyboard, which is in this console. It was a pneumatic arrangement, and once the key was struck, wires through the top attached to the clapper and would hit the inside of the bell. So the bells are stationary and would hit the inside of the bell. Where was I going with that? The instrument at that time was not what they originally intended, or not the correct method for playing a carillon. The reason we can only hypothesise about, but it was likely that either we ran out of funds, very likely, but probably more likely, who was going to be able to play this thing? And if you've got a keyboard, anyone who can play a keyboard would be able to play the carillon. So that was the method that was used for quite a considerable time, until about the 1980s, when that mechanism really was no longer fit for purpose and the voice went silent. The council at the time decided, well, okay, perhaps it would be foolhardy to repair that. So maybe we could go back to an old idea, and was, let's have a town clock. The image on the left there of the screen is a design that was originally put forward in 1905 as a possible memorial for the Boer War. Clearly that didn't happen. So that idea of a town clock obviously was still in people's heads. It was the anniversary of the centenary of Bathurst being proclaimed a city in 1985. So the project the council undertook was to convert the Carillon into effectively a town clock. So what happened was the clappers were all taken out of the bells. The bells each had a large hammer attached to the outside, and that was operated electronically so that it would play the Westminster chimes and also a pre-recorded tune at 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock. It could also be played with an electronic keyboard. So there was music, the voice came back, and Bathurst was quite happy for a while. There was an issue though with that. The difference between playing with the clappers on the inside, that's musical. So the harder you hit the key in the first instance, the louder your sound's going to be. So you've got musicality. This just goes dong, dong, and even if you're playing a tune, it's still dong, 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 you know, it's the same. So, okay, that's fine. What happened though? A very sad day, because in 2000, Adrian Gabrus, who was the president of the World Carillon Federation and a carillonist, came to Bathurst to have a look at our carillon. And of course they thought, well, he'll play for us, that'll be lovely. He went up the stairs, had a look at what was there, and he said, look, I'm terribly sorry, folks, but you don't have a carillon. What? It's always been called a carillon. And here's this fellow saying you don't have one. In fact, he said that the instrument was rather like having the fine Stradivarius violin and then going and paying $20 to buy a bow to play it. It just wasn't right. You haven't got the right mechanism. You need a clavier. All right, that had been the intention in the first place. After the carillon was actually completed in 1933, Robert Peacock had tried to raise more funds to be able to install the clavier, but there was absolutely no appetite. People have been, by the time they paid off the debt in 1938, they've been raising funds for over 10 years. Okay, enough is enough. He tried to revive it after the Second World War. No, nothing happening. So there it stayed until we had the 1985 Westminster chimes. So when Gabrus made that statement, Bathurst sort of thought, well, perhaps we better do something. And that was the start of a fundraising effort that took 20 years to get us to completion and eventually being able to complete the carillon. So what was the process that was undertaken? We went back to tailors in Loughborough who had cast the original bells, and their advice was that the top 12 bells, the smaller ones at the time, would need to be recast or a new set cast because there was something about the alloy that was used that wasn't so good of that particular series of bells. Okay, we'll have those recast. And while we're about it, could we please have another 12 bells? So we upgraded the carillon to a 47 bell carillon, giving a much larger range to be played. The bells, the replacement bells are these very plain looking ones. They're nowhere near as attractive as the original ones with their beautiful embellishments and so on. But what we did do, they replaced the old ones with these new ones. The ones that had names on them were once again cast with those bells. The three that hadn't had names on them in the first place and now have the names Bathurst, Hill End and Tambaroora and Black Springs. And the tiny set of bells at the top tier we call the peace bells. So all bells in the memorial have a name. The bells were installed in November 2018. The next part of the upgrade was quite a difficult one. An eternal flame, a gas-fired eternal flame, had been installed in 1965, turned on, or lit rather, on Anzac Day dawn service, 1965. And that was seen very much as being the heart of the memorial to the returned servicemen. So the idea of saying, well, I'm sorry, people, we're going to have to replace it, because to burn orange and be seen produces a lot of soot. And the soot made its way up through the tower, up the stairs, and of course, it was not going to be conducive to a beautiful clavia, which I'll show you in a moment. So it needed to be replaced. Very reluctantly, the sub-branch approached Terence Plowright OAM, who's a well-known sculptor who's produced all sorts of sculptures, including memorial ones. Terence came to Bathurst with 10 designs. The 10 designs were contemporary, to say the very least. But what was chosen is the one that's there now, which is kind of in keeping with the structure itself. And that was installed on, or turned on Anzac Day 2019. And one of the nice things about the memorial is that there are links with people. And the person who turned on this eternal flame, Alex Bedwell, had been the person who was there when they lit the first one. So there are nice little links with people throughout the story of our memorial. So having finally got that there was only one more thing to do, and that was to install a clavia. Completely different playing mechanism, as you can see. And you can now see why in 1933, if that had been installed, the carillon would not have had a voice at all, because at that time, there's certainly no carillonists in Bathurst, but we certainly had people who could play the keyboard. So once this was installed in November 2020, it was necessary, obviously, to get some people to play it. So our first 3 carillonists, so Jen, Denise and Wendy there, they undertook their lessons, first of all, in Canberra with Lynn Fuller, who was the lead carillonist there at the time, and finished their graduations in 2021. So we have 3 fully trained carillonists in Bathurst who now produce beautiful music. The carillon has now, with the installation of that clavia, its voice, the voice that it was always intended to have, the voice that reminds us of people not only from that First World War, all conflicts ever since, people from Bathurst, and of course it can be played for all sorts of purposes. So the Friends of the Carillon is just a really small group, but our job is to bring that playing to the people of Bathurst, have music heard in the heart of Bathurst once again, and it is completely different. If you are there when you hear the Westminster Chimes and then hear a recital, you'll note the difference, the complete difference between the sound that is produced. So we're not very keen on the electronic ones at all, as much playing as possible. We're involved in trying to train further carillonists, and we also spend time doing what I'm doing now, and that's telling people the story of the War Memorial Carillon and conducting tours. We now have a recital series, and every Saturday, as near as possible, at 1 o'clock, beautiful programs being played on the carillon. And I urge anyone who's around on Saturday at 1 o'clock, go and have a listen. So that's really the story of Bathurst War Memorial Carillon at this point. Has anyone got any questions? Oh,
That's it.
thank you. I feel a whole lot better.
I was just wondering, the three women you trained, did they have a background in keyboards or
Yes.
music in any way? Yeah.
Yes, it's really rather important that they do. Because this, in fact, I can play a keyboard too, but that bamboozles me because these top ones are effectively your black keys. And obviously these are your white keys. Middle C turns out to be not in the centre of the instrument. It turns out to be up here somewhere. It has foot pedals as well. So a lot of the bells can be played by foot or by hand or both. So it's a completely different sort of instrument. Yes, they have really good keyboard backgrounds and obviously can read music that needs to be transposed into that sort of arrangement. But we've got a program at the moment, an 8-week program, because people are intrigued and they want to know if they can play it. Can I really do that? So for 8 weeks, they can have a short course and learn how it's played, learn how much commitment would be there if you wanted to really learn it, because it took the girls about 3 years to master it. And yeah.
How are those buttons pushed?
They're hit basically with the fist. But having said that, I don't play. Right, I don't play. But yes, they can play it. You know, they can reach different ones, play chords and so on. But it's a different movement altogether. So it's a whole new learning experience for musicians. Anybody else?
Has the fellow from overseas been back to look at it?
No, he hasn't. and I keep meaning to email him because I want to know more about his visit to Bathurst and how sad that must have been. I can just imagine his face when he got there, expecting something like this, but on a larger scale, because other Koreans have, 50, 74 bells, much larger than what we have. I can just imagine his face expecting something like that and then seeing this tiny little keyboard sitting there. Sorry, we just don't have it. And no, I'm not playing it, but it would be lovely if he came back.
You might have to invite him back.
Yeah.
Another bucket of money from somewhere, which is always a challenge.
What happened to the original bells after?
Excellent question. Because they're heritage items. They're beautiful. I can't emphasize enough how beautiful those bells are and how dreary the modern versions are. We didn't send them back. We still have them. They were put into storage, and just in the last couple of weeks, I've had a conversation with Tim Pike. We've taken one back into the tower now. They've come here to the centre just recently. I guess they've been dusted off and cleaned up and photographed and recorded and so on. One came back to the tower 2 weeks ago, which is on display on the first floor for people to have a look at, so we can actually show people what they look like. We talked more about getting them all back into the tower, so the others will probably come back and sit on something and on that floor, so that they're in the tower where they belong. And somewhere down the track, who knows when and how, they'll come up with a more permanent display. But they're there. And they're coming, which is really exciting.
How heavy is the biggest one?
I knew you'd say that. Hang on. Oh, I haven't got the weights. Yes, I have. I have some brochures for those of you who might. The largest bell weighs 3,100 weight or over 1.5 tons.
Wow.
And interestingly enough, there is actually room in the tower for more bells, which of course the Bruinists would love. But those dollar signs.
And Mr. Cool, have you ever?
Never surfaced. No, don't know who he was, where he was. and or what he designed. That's the other thing. There's no evidence of what it could have been. So it's hypothetical, quite hypothetical. Victoria.
I know you've shared part of this with me before, but would you mind sharing with us how it featured in the line recently?
Absolutely. And as Patu said earlier, that was a really significant period of time in Bathurst. It was a wonderful, wonderful program of events and activities to share the story of the, well, not only the declaration of martial law, but also the culture of the people here in Bathurst. It was a wonderful occasion. And we were asked if perhaps when they did a smoking ceremony, so the first activity, one of the first activities in that program was to take a smoking ceremony around Bathurst to cleanse the city itself. So the elders put that onto a trailer. And of course, as I explained, normally a smoking ceremony is accompanied by clapsticks. Well, you're not going to hear those around Bathurst. So hang on, there's this very large, loud thing in the centre of the city. Could it possibly replicate clapsticks? And the elders came up to the tower. We worked out which note would be appropriate. And Wendy, the one standing up there, spent an hour with just the one note and the rhythm of the clapsticks that resonated around Bathurst whilst that smoking ceremony took place. So it really was quite a special occasion. And, you know, it's a war memorial. So what gets played technically has to be approved by the RSL sub-branch. What we came up with is that the memorial can play for commemoration, quite obviously, for celebration, because that's what it used to do back in the day. You know, if there's some key event happening or some civic event happening, it would play. It played for, you know, the death of Ben Shipley, all of those sorts of things. So things in the civic arena, and of course it can play for entertainment. So on Star Wars Day, when we have a tour, we play Star Wars music. And so, you know, there's all sorts that can be played. The only thing we were told we were not to play was Happy Birthday. And when I spoke to Dave Mills a few weeks ago, he said, you know, they can play whatever they like on Remembrance Day, but you know what they're not to play. I said, yeah, that's fine. He said, well, maybe one day when, you know, some of the old veterans are no longer with us, then we'll be allowed to play Happy Birthday. We couldn't play it for the 90th anniversary last year. Maybe the 100th we might. Who knows? Who knows? But that's sort of how it works. Yeah.
Question from online. Does it have an automatic mechanism to play?
It does have an automatic mechanism. That electronic one is still there. We deliberately don't use that. Council does and ties it in with the Westminster chimes, because those hammers are still on the outside, so the chimes are there, so it can be played electronically. But this mechanism, no, totally manual. Totally manual. Yeah. Okay. I think I've done it. Thank you, everybody. If anyone would like a brochure about Bathurst War Memorial Pavilion,
Thank you very much. Fascinating talk. Some of the things that I'm taking home, I like the idea of inscriptions on the bells, which makes the whole, when we hear it now, it brings another dimension to that. I think it's brilliant. Bathurst Library will be holding a talk on the history of the Carillonist, the Bathurst Carillonist.
Yes,
on
this
Saturday.
Saturday,
Okay.
tonight at 2 p.m.
So anybody
Oh,
that's
freaky.
close by, maybe our colleagues from the Blue Mountains or Lithgow would come and to the talk. And the other thing I'm taking from the talk, Jan, is buy a brick. I really like the idea of that. Maybe that would be for the next library. And you just move the art gallery out. So. Okay, we've got a little bit of a change of plan with the agenda. And
Just because we're running a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
And for those online, I'm going to just put the recording on hold at present because this is going to be a discussion.
I'm looking forward to seeing more of Bathurst. So this is our new extended Springwood Library. This here is the back of the original 1976 building. As you can see, it's a whole new module here and lovely windows looking to the south over Brimhouse National Park. This was opened in May last year. It's been very popular since then. I was just talking to Ellen how popular it's been during HSC. We've got study tables and Wi-Fi tables up looking through those windows. I don't know how those kids concentrate, but they do, and they're doing a tremendous job. So this is the new entry to the library. This is walking in from that building on the left, which was the community theatre and hub. We walk into the library now and we're seeing a whole new area. We've got new ceiling, new carpets. These are nifty. They look like they're floating off the carpet. They've actually got mirrors around the base. So we've got regular displays. You can see what sort of thing we have here. I'm just going to walk you through what the local studies section looks like. If you want to see some more background, I commend you to the local studies blog. I've just put up a history of the library for our 50th anniversary. So let's go into the library. Up here, we've got this is the same picture up here on our rotating display screen. So local studies has a presence as soon as you walk in. Yeah, there it is there. That's one of our historic photos from the photo collection. We put our photos on Flickr. Always worth having a look. So we're in now. This is, as I say, upstairs. We're looking through to the library. So now we've got a lift downstairs. Never had this before because the underneath part wasn't part of the library. It was part of council. And it was also library technical services. We've got stairs down as well. Once we get down to the stairs, we're looking out into the southern car park. New security panels on the entrance. And we turn around, and this is now the new research room. Oh, whoops, I shouldn't touch the screen. Meeting rooms over here, named after local eucalypt species, and this little door through there where we go through to my work area. So this is the council customer services area where you can pay your rates, register your dog and things. So it's integrated. And as I say, you walk through, you can see some kids in here studying at the moment. When I took these photos last month. Are we going? Are we going? Do I have to flip the screen? Yeah, just flip the screen. Yes. Yeah, so that's just looking down into the research area. We've got the film history collection at the end, microfilm and mat cabinets, and these bookshelves here, the local studies book collection. That's just a close-up showing what it looks like from the other end. Newspapers on microfilm there, book collection again. This is the first time the book collection has been publicly available. So people can actually walk up and look at the books. Before, we used to be in the historic Braemar building at the front of the library, 1892, in separate rooms, never built as a library, of course. This is the first purpose-built local studies section we've had. It's got proper cabling, proper power points, proper Wi-Fi everywhere. In old Braemar, it used to be cold in winter. I'd plug in a radiator and the circuit breakers would all trip. So this is a big step up. Yeah, family history here. Oh, this is my desk. This is this is where it all happens. So that's Henry Parkes there. That's the Henry Parkes embroidery done by his daughters. This is my little working area. It's the best work area I've had. Again, it's air conditioned. Look, just the usual sort of stuff that collects around local studies librarians' desks, boxes of stuff donated. We'll get round to that eventually. Oh, and that's the original council crest from the original council building in 1947. Look, I won't get into this too much. That's a park found in Central Australia where Blue Mountains Council used to advertise itself only 40 miles to Australia's Blue Mountains. That's how far they used to advertise council, because they realised that, you know, being a tourist area, they needed to get tourists. So that was found in a shed out in Central Australia and donated to me a few years ago. That's looking the other way. So you can see it's a large work area. It can be a bit noisy. This is what modern work areas are now. So I always keep my headphones handy, but that's okay. In a way, it's the first time I've actually been part of the rest of the library rather than being in a separate building. So that's been a major improvement. This is looking at some of the facilities out in the research room area. Again, looking through to that nice view over the national park. Photocopy is not so much used these days. I find most people just use their mobile phone to snap pages that they need and take home. Oh, and that's my compactus. Yep. Everyone needs a compactus. Did I miss one? No. That's good. So compactus there. So this is my half of the compactus. I take the claim on that quite early when we did last year, and it's what we have. It's the space we have, so we use it. I think everyone knows what it's like. And that's just looking at the car park and a close up of the back of the library. That's upstairs. These are a few extra ones that I've cheated by adding on. So we'll just click through those staff lockers, hot desks. Yeah, that's the council hot desk. Little study areas upstairs. This is why it's been so popular, because people have been using the library. It's been so attractive. So look, everyone's welcome to drop in. Lots of people pass through Springwood. Give me a call, shoot me an email, drop in, have a look around. And that's just one of my glass slide collections that I've just recently received by a local photographer. It's a nice one to finish on. These are stonemasons working on the Art Gallery of New South Wales. Aren't they terrific? See working people. Oh, that's it.
Very fine.
This was a collection that I worked very hard to get. The Art Gallery of New South Wales had their eyes on it. No. Thank you. Yeah, I'm finished. Any questions? No questions.
So next we have Tara Eagleton with New Library Build Enhancing Local Study Services and Community Engagement. Online?
I am online, yes.
Brilliant.
I think I sent Mary my slides.
Sorry, apologies.
No, that's okay. I was a bit worried that I had to have them ready.
Here we go.
Okay.
Give me 1 moment and I'll share it.
So I wanted to say that's great, John. I like looking at other people's research rooms because that's what I'm going to be talking about.
Have you got that?
Yep, I can see that. Thank you. So as probably many of you do know, Liverpool Library has also moved to a new purpose-built library December last year. We do have 5 other branches around the area, but this circular building in the front here is our new CBD library, which is called Yellamundi, which means storyteller in the Darug language, the traditional owners of this land. And the building behind that is actually the new council building. And library staff actually, back of office library staff actually work at the very, very top of the building behind the library. So anyway, since this has been open a bit short of a year now, our main focus has been on encouraging the community to come in and use our space, and trying to get people into the building. And that includes the Heritage Room, which is a dedicated research room on the bottom floor. There's 6 levels to this building, so the research room is on the lowest floor. Next slide, thank you. Okay, so that's just looking into the room. At our old library, we didn't have a research room for a few years. So when people came in, they basically had to look at any research material near the service desk. So now we have this dedicated space. It is lockable. We have 12 comfortable chairs in there, and the monitor, which also has a camera, so you can, you know, have meetings or webinars or different things like that. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is looking out from that room, and this is a really busy floor of the library. It has all the public PCs, the study rooms, the non-fiction collection. We also have an art gallery around the corner and some program rooms as well. There is a climate controlled archive room near to the research room. So that's handy, and we can bring in materials for people to view in this room. Next slide, please. That is we have the local studies collection. Some of it is out on the main floor. And then you would have seen in the room, we have more of the collection in there, which is just like a sort of broader historical books on New South Wales, and some other local study published books. So being a really busy floor, we do get a lot of people looking for a study space. But this particular room we've reserved for basically heritage and family research only. But when they do ask, you know, sometimes it's a good opportunity to talk to them about our local studies collection. Next slide. Okay, so we have been thinking, how can we get a lot of use out of this room? So firstly, we decided to do drop-in sessions. We do 2 a week, Tuesday mornings and Thursday afternoons. Usually myself or our local studies officer will be in there, and we're there to answer, you know, any questions anyone has, family history, local history related. We can use that monitor to sort of bring up any digital materials or show them how to use the catalogue, how to search for things. And that's been going, you know, some sessions we might not have anyone in. Other times we could have someone in there for about the whole 2 hours discussing things. So next slide. Okay, we also had in April last year a family history workshop that ran over 2 Saturdays. That was run by Society of Australian Genealogists, and it was a good opportunity to get people in and really like show that this is a room you can come back to, you know, bring your laptop, loan a laptop, do your family history research, use all our databases, and sort of like spread yourself out in that room. Okay, next slide. Some other things, we have had some oral history interviews. Currently, we do have a family history researcher who's coming in nearly every day. Just sort of wandered into the library to ask about her family history, and we had like a 30-box archive that her grandmother had researched that she had no idea was there. And this was an unprocessed collection. So she's been coming in now, and luckily she's also in records management. So she's been listing the boxes and really helping out with making sense of everything there. So the room's getting a lot of use for that. It's also good because it's private, and sometimes some of the things that she's been finding is emotional. So it's nice to have this space. Next slide. So we're still looking at things we can do with the staff resourcing we have. We're going to try and run some Amplify training sessions and hopefully get a sort of oral history volunteer project running. We could use that room as well for meetings and interviews. And definitely on the wish list would be a digital preservation station of some sort, not the one in the picture because that's probably well out of our range, but yeah, that'd be a good place to put something like that. And so I'm also interested, if any, to know what others are doing with their reading research rooms, if they have one. We're still looking for lots of ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next on the agenda is actually me. So I'm going to be doing a presentation that I've titled From the Vault Learning Hardware the Curated Exhibition Series. So it's there. On there. So while she's getting that set up, I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Simone Taylor. I work at the Western Place Cultural Centre in Dubbo as the local studies officer there. Originally, I was based with the Helen down at the Quarry Regional Library, but we had an amalgamation of our council in 2019 or so, and as part of that, they did some structural changes to council. One of the changes they decided to make was to bring our collections all back together, because originally the local studies collection was part of the former museum collection. So they brought them all back under one roof, and that meant my position moved over to our cultural development team, and I work with our museum and gallery staff now. So my background is actually museum studies, even though it's been many, many years. One of the things that I discussed with my boss was to look at how we could make the local studies collection a bit more accessible through an exhibition series, and that's where we came up with the idea of From the Vault. So what it is it's basically an exhibition series based on the local studies collection, and it's located it's sort of in this corridor, so it's a high traffic corridor because that doorway at the end leads to a whole lot of meeting rooms, so we have quite a lot of people. The other side of that wall is our main permanent museum exhibition displays. So the project started in 2021, 2022, and the idea was sort of to look at what elements of the collection that might work as an exhibition sort of thing, because not everything in local studies or in my collection would be worthy of an exhibition, but we had lots of little bits of collection that basically nobody had ever seen before. So some of the collections that I kind of worked with, this one here was based on a whole series of 19th and early 20th century dance cards that we had in the collection that nobody had ever seen before. And you can't really see them, but they're all framed in those little pictures along there. So other things that I've done have been, we had our 150th anniversary of the Dubbo show, so I did a show on that. I did one on our locals park in town and looking at some of the beautiful photographs that we had of that and things like that. That's the next one. So to do an exhibition is not a small feat. There is a lot of planning in an exhibition, and especially as we are a small team, we are responsible for every element of an exhibition, from design and content and all of that kind of stuff, through to planning, public program, media, education, installation, and debrief. So we've just recently introduced a new planning system, which this sort of spreadsheet represents, where we basically have a lead time of about 12 to 18 months, 12 months probably more for my projects because they're a bit smaller. And we plan out everything. And as we go through, we've got to kind of highlight it green. And if you get a red, you're running a bit behind. So there isn't any reds on that one at the moment because I just copied one across the but there's a lot of reds on my other projects as well, so I can tell you. So part of the process is to develop the idea. As I said, I start with the collection, but it's with that, you also have to kind of think about sort of what story I want to tell with that collection and how that's going to be represented as an exhibition. So it's more than just objects on a wall. It's thinking about layout, format, design, color, font, all of that kind of stuff is all involved in how you design an exhibition. So in this case, you can see I've got the panels there. So I had to think about, so I kind of tried to think about the color and the design work. And I was also working at the time with the grey walls. So what will work with the grey walls and things like that. So there's a lot of kind of thought that goes into really small decisions, like what font you're going to use, and even how that font's going to look on the wall. Is it going to be readable? Is it going to be big enough? And all of that kind of stuff. And I'm still learning about this. I've made so many mistakes, which I will talk about soon enough. One of the limitations I do have with this space is because it's a corridor, I am relegated to sort of 2D displays. Now, most of my collection is 2D anyway, so it sort of works in that space, but there could be potential to use like 3D objects as well if I had different sorts of spaces to use it in. And a future upcoming one, I've already had a discussion with my boss about where we could put maybe a display cabinet where I could put a 3D object in there as part of that exhibition. Another element of it is I've always been challenged to put some sort of design element in the show. So in this case, I've got two examples. The one on there is that is a huge piece of vinyl. So that vinyl took up half the wall. So it was probably about, I think that wall is about 3 meters high and it was probably about 4 meters wide. So it was a massive vinyl from one of our photographs in the collection, and that was my first attempt, so it was probably the easiest thing you could possibly do as a design element. And as I've gone further along, my designs have gotten a bit more shall we say sophisticated, and I do have a lot of support from our cultural development team who are background in curatorial and background in design and all of that kind of stuff, so I lean on them quite heavily with that because it's certainly not my forte at all, but it's been a lot of fun to learn. So installation, which I mentioned before, this is a big part of the project. So installation takes about a week. I usually do it by myself. So I have had to learn to use a whole lot of different tools, which I'd never used before. Things like laser guided spirit levels and things like that. And there's a lot of measuring and there's a lot of mistakes and re-measuring. The amount of times I put panels up the wrong way around, you wouldn't believe. And you can see up here in that exhibition, I had the walls repainted. And that was a lot of fun going and picking colours. In fact, the colour I'd chosen was completely different from that colour. Because when I looked at it on screen and everything, I got the colour code and everything, I thought it was a completely different colour. I took it down to the paint shop and like, here's the colour code, can you make that colour? I mixed it up, gave me the pot, I took it away. We had our one of our guys painted on the walls and I'm like, hang on, that's not the colour I thought it was. So that was a bit of a worry because it was like all of my other elements work. And in fact, I was very fortunate because it came out and it looked great. But it is one of those things that I learned from that. Get a test pot. It's only $10. You can see what the actual colour is. So this is great. I can talk about some of the challenges that I faced with this. And I've mentioned a few of them before. I've had lots and lots of them. I've had everything from just being caught, like not thinking the layout through and making mistakes there, having issues with the concept and struggling with that, to simple things like the vinyl literally not sticking to the wall. And this is a case where that timeline there, so that's the first one I put up, and that's all vinyl sticker, and oops, gone too far, and it peeled off. And so I had to redesign that entire thing, peel that off and put that up after we installed on the show it open. So that was a bit of a mistake, but I learned from it. And my boss was very nice about it and didn't yell at me too much. So reception. So far we haven't had a good way to track people's like visitor numbers and stuff like that, because it's a corridor, because it's part of the main space. That's kind of the next stage for me, is looking at better ways to track how people are engaging with it. Colloquially, we've had things come up on like council social media and stuff like that, where people have complimented it and things like that. And the verbal feedback I've always had has been really, really good. But yeah, next stage will be getting proper kind of metrics about what's working, what's not, from kind of an audience perspective. And future challenges. So I'm working on the next 2 shows, another show for the wall there, and I'm actually going to be installing in a couple of weeks' time a show on one of our main spaces. So that's pretty exciting. So I'm working pretty intensively on that at the moment. And so hopefully everything I've learned from these little shows, I will make slightly less mistakes on this bigger show that I'm working on. Any questions, Ellen?
And the questions will have to be quick.
Yeah.
Where do you get the large vinyl image printed, and can you tell us more about that? That's from online.
Yeah, absolutely. So not all of them, but a good percentage of our photographic collection we have digitized, and we just digitize them using a Scan Pro, I think it was. And for the big vinyl ones, you want to scan at least 1200 DPI tips. Then we've got some local sign writers, and so they do all our vinyl. So that's actually vinyl text as well. So that's the exact same stuff as that big picture. And so they print it up as a huge picture, and then we just pay them to come and install it, and they basically put it on the wall. The timeline, which is also the same material, we put that up ourselves. And so you basically, that was just basically one big piece of vinyl. And vinyl works as it's a bit like contact on a book. So you have it on 2 pieces. You pull down one side and you've got the letters, then or the image, and then you stick it to the wall, and then you pull down the front part. It can be really slow and laborious, particularly with letters, because they can peel and not stick and do all sorts of things. And I had one instance where I had to get all the vinyl redone because the font I chose was too small and it was too thin, and it just wouldn't unpeel. So there's a lot of thought going into it. But yeah, from an image, we just take it to our local sign writer company that knows us really well and has worked with us for years and does big vinyl printing like that quite regularly for us. Any other questions? No? Oh, yeah.
Just a comment, there's a product called Silk Tack, which is like a reusable vinyl. So you get more than one chance to put it on the wall.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know if they know about that, but that's good to know. My boss, the other thing that I didn't mention with this is one of the things that we're pushing towards as developing our processes as a team as a whole is looking at things like sustainability, diverse audiences, and how we can at the planning stage be accounting for that. So something like reusable vinyl would be another thing that to be adding to our list of potential uses. Was that all the questions? We'll move on to the next person, who is first. Bathurst Library. Oh,
That's me. I'll just get it set up.
Yeah.
So with my presentation, I have a habit of being able to go on for quite a long time. So I set myself a challenge. I've put each slide as 30 seconds, and I have to keep up with that. Okay, I'll find my presentation and share it.
That's an idea we might consider our own presenters too.
Okay, I'll get myself. I'm ready to go. Okay, my name's Mary Thatcher. I'm part of the information services team at Bathurst Library. In our information services team, we do community history, community information, reference, interlibrary loans, multicultural loans, and a little bit of membership admin. But within local history, we are trying to grow our collection, including contemporary history, grow our access and grow our awareness of the collection. We are still growing, and this presentation is about some of the ways we are growing. So in 2020, when I started, we had 2 full-time staff and 2 part-time vacancies that were filled later in 2021. We already had our local history and family history public access collections, a local history stack, a microfilm collection, online images, a successful local history Facebook post every Wednesday, and an online cemetery index, to name some of the things there. But we needed to work on cataloguing and catalogue maintenance. So within our local history stack collection, at least half of it isn't catalogued. We did a stock take of our local history and family history public access collections and identified catalogue records to fix. We're doing a lot of catalogue maintenance, putting more information into the catalogue records, giving them more appropriate call numbers, and in some cases, more appropriate titles. We want to do a local history stack stock take and a lot more of the catalogue maintenance and cataloguing. We also started local history files. There weren't any vertical files here at Bathurst Library, and I don't think that we have space for them. So in 2020, we began scanning newspaper articles and saving other items onto a staff drive. Next, our team is discussing ways we can increase the diversity of what we're collecting and from where we collect it, while keeping our workload manageable, but also discussing ways we can provide public access to these files in consideration of copyright. Since 2020, our digitisation has been reactive and sporadic. So we've done heritage indexes, village cemetery indexes, water damaged items and other items that are out of copyright, or items we've been given consent to place online. But we really need a digitisation plan as well, so that it can be more structured and strategic, and we have something in mind for every year in the future of what we can do. We've started using a display cabinet and a screen for promotion. So with the display cabinet, we use physical items from our collection and also some from community groups. We also use a large screen mainly for promotions and historical displays. I find this more flexible than display boards. It doesn't block light from the windows or lines of sight, and it's very versatile in what we put on there. In terms of promotion, we've also been growing our awareness on Facebook. We have our Way Back Wednesday posts that have been going since at least 2016. The last couple of years, we started getting between 2,000 and 10,000 reach for that, and sometimes quite a bit more. We've also added a Discover More post. This is one we do every month, and it's a way of incorporating Wiradjuri history and culture into what's still a predominantly white colonizer local history collection. It's been a learning arc for us. We now have a checklist that we follow to make sure we do it right, and we have it from the archives post. But we're also doing how-to guides now. In 2023, we had a library survey, and it was clear that we needed to work on the awareness of the collection. From a reference perspective, this is great because we want to reduce the amount of simple information requests that our team are receiving. The public can start their search using these guides, and it's also great for the staff on the circulation desk during their initial reference interviews to know what to say and how to direct people. We've also been growing our local history networks. It's been twofold. We have our internal relationships. So, for example, making council aware of that, making council sections aware that the library is active in local history and heritage, and also growing our relationships with history groups through inviting them to give presentations at the library, presenting our local and family history collections and services to them, and visiting them when we can. We are finally also doing community history projects. One is called Bathurst Recollections, where people can contribute anecdotes and stories about their local area. Pillars of Bathurst is a legacy project from council, specifically about people who have contributed to the development of the community. Next, we want to develop a marketing strategy for sections of the community that we're not currently reaching, including more recent history and more diverse history. And that's the end of my presentation.
And our last presenter is Ian Hoskins.
My notes are. Have you got your reel ready?
Yes, but on the PowerPoint.
Yep, so
Oh, we can't see it with the notes.
You won't be able to see it on here unless
No.
we just have it on the regular screen.
No, but can we see it on that one if I share it? No.
Yes, or we can just plug it in here and you can go on notes here and I can just do it that way.
do you want to do your order like it was here? Or-
Okay.
Yeah.
This is good. I can skip through those.
Okay. Yeah, we'll add it in there at this
Yeah.
time so that we don't. Where are we?
So the that one was.
I'll sit because I'm pressing multiple buttons at the same time. So hello, I'm Rachel Cullen. I'm the manager of public engagement for New South Wales, the National Archives of Australia. And I wanted to come today to basically get a feel for, you know, what everyone is interested in and things like that. We, as an institution ourselves, were slowing down on our public engagement side of things for a while. We kept being told to do less with less. The things were put down and we've been told, luckily, because I like doing it, to pick it up again. And so, yeah, it's about sort of re-engaging with everyone and saying, we're here, we exist. So, yeah, start today. And I also wanted to start by saying Woomera, which is welcome in the language of the Darug people, which is where the New South Wales office is situated, which is in Chester Hill in Sydney. And this one. Yeah, so which button do I press on this? Okay, great. So I always have trouble picking a photo to start with when I'm talking over things, but because our king recently visited, I thought I'd use one from him in 1979 when he visited last, and use it as I sort of introduce what I'm doing. So what I want to do today is to introduce who we are, the National Archives, to give a really basic overview of how to navigate the system. Some people here and online will know it very well, and others may not. It can be kind of confusing to people new to it. And then to look at how we can sort of work together for the next year or so. So I did a photo. Fun. All right, so the National Archives of Australia is the repository of records created by the federal government and its agencies. So it covers those broader, bigger picture records like policies and large-scale information and decision-making, records of prime ministers like chiefly here, or governor generals writing to monarchs about getting rid of prime ministers, national defence, scientific endeavours like the CSIRO, and military service records. So the nature of government is it's those big picture things, but it's always about people as well, and it can be narrowed down to the individual or the local area. with immigration and census data and military service records. And so this is an example of one of our service records that I came across. One of my favorite names I've ever come across, Winsome Sword is her name. And it's her enlistment record. Winsome Sword. And this is a picture of Winsome. And I found this record when I was going down a rabbit hole of our records, just because I was decided to sort of give the parameters of Bathurst. And Bathurst isn't mentioned in her record at all, but because I got sidetracked on a rabbit hole, this is where I ended up finding Winsome Sword. And also, you'll see how I got there a little bit later. Another example of what we do and our individual records is this fantastic photo here. We've been on a big digitization project with a lot of our photographs, and this was used in an exhibition. We actually got a call from someone saying, I think that's my mum. And so I was able to find the physical record and look, and it didn't have any names, descriptions, but it had when and where it was photographed. And so we were able to then go, we actually have a collection of 33 photographs that were taken that day on the bus in that area. And it was his mother. And so we were able to find actually even more photos of her, like this one here, where she's, I think, not too happy about the smoking bus driver. And I love every photo. Her face is just so beautiful and intense. Like it's, yeah. So being able to give this person like 33 photos of his mother is a fantastic thing to do. And it doesn't come from a name at all, but it also shows that sort of government, sort of bigger projects and how it can sort of link to the individual there. So we collect and preserve and provide access to all of our records. And so as you guys all know, and can imagine, each of those terms, preserve, collect, and provide access, is a tiny pointer to a huge body of work underneath each of one of those things and archival practice. At last guesstimate, the archives has 40 million records, and that's always growing and counting because government is still functioning. Every state and territory has an office. The other state and territory offices are quite small, except for Canberra, which has got a fantastic building in the Parliamentary Triangle and another repository out there. And then also New South Wales, which is actually the biggest repository. And we have 188 kilometres of shelf space. So yeah, a lot. And so that's just me showing off one of the long corridors there. So while there are a lot of things listed online, only 10% of the collection in the New South Wales repository is actually controlled or described at item level, let alone described well. So it really helps to know how to search our collection, because just because the record doesn't necessarily come up when you're using those key terms, doesn't mean it's not actually there. So yes, this is me using the lab. All right, so how we control our records is through sort of a government agency structure of the Commonwealth Records Control System. So we have, first of all, the government agencies, so the department and all the records it creates. And it can be people as well, so we can have prime ministers and things like that, or royal commissions and those kinds of things. And then underneath that, we create series, and they're based on similar records, hopefully. And so that might be grouping them together by format. So you might have an agency and this is all their photographic records, and this is their paper records, and this is their AV records. Or you might have, this is their personnel records, and this is their core bits of their core business. and this is sort of their policy records, and this is their correspondence. So we sort of try and group things together in a way that can sort of, I suppose that makes sense for the agency when they're putting them together, but also makes sense for us for cataloguing them and storing them. And then underneath that, hopefully, that item level. So that's normally a file that can be a map, photograph, images, a film reel. And the goal eventually is to have everything sort of described at item level so that everything can be defined at that level. But it's that can be really tricky. There was a National Archives Day quite a while ago now where the head of the archives for the US government was over visiting, and he was talking about how the then President, Barack Obama had given them the goal to be more transparent in government. And so they've gone through and they've looked at what they had described and how little was. And they had this project to try and describe everything. And he said, so 5 years later, we have 100% of things described. And this ripple went through the crowd. And I was like, oh, how did they manage that? And at the end, and he was telling stories about how they were trying to work out how to sort of archive tweets and things like that, because Trump had just become president at the time, and all those kind of things. But everyone just kept sort of, how did you manage to describe everything? And he said, oh, no, it's described at series level. And everyone went, oh. We've done that. So it's always a big challenge. All right, so I've given myself the parameter, like I said, of Bathurst as our really basic search term to look at what it brings up in the collection. And this is our sort of graph model. So we'll start at that base level of the items. So if we go into an advanced search on record search, and we just type in Bathurst and also search notes. So now when I did that, I actually got nearly 16,000 records, which to the local historians here probably isn't a surprise because Bathurst is quite a hub of historical things. And so looking through, it's actually a lot of service records. So the archives has made a concerted effort to describe and digitize service records from World War I and World War II. And actually, about 3 weeks ago, we finished our World War II service records. So they're all available online. Yeah, they're a really fantastic resource. But even the information that you find here is really interesting because you can see that it's not just people from Bathurst who enlisting because of the way they describe the records, but people from all of the areas all around Bathurst who came into Bathurst because it was a place to come in and enlist. You moved out. So you can see that there's different areas, even just in this list, people from Bathurst, Hillgrove, Narrabri, and the list go all coming into enlist. And one of the records, again, I found here, which was really interesting, was Jeffrey Blackburn, and he was actually born in Indiana, in USA, in 1880, and he came to Australia and was naturalized and then enlisted in Bathurst in 1916. And so when I was looking this up, I went to look to see if I could find a photograph, so I put another record on him, and that's when I found Winsome Sword. Because she came from a town called Blackburn in Victoria. So, so I was like, oh, Indiana, USA, that's fascinating that someone was here back in that time signing up. And again, all the different things that you can find when you're looking, it's very hard to stay on track. So maybe I think, yeah, I need timing even when I'm just writing the. So if you go in to narrow things down, because 16,000 records is too many to scroll through to work out what you want, you can go through, and I narrowed things down in this one. I went Bathurst, also search notes and audiovisual records, just to see what we had with that. And then I came across this. Now, is this going to play if I do that? Let's see if I can make this play. All right, so this is going to start playing here. Yeah. So this footage is just called Western Section Committee Meeting, Bathurst. So it's not super clear what it's about. It's from 1966. And so this is where we start to see the importance of the provenance of records and the structure in that CRS model to work out what this is. Because I'll show you how I did it in a sec, but while we're watching through this, if you go up to the series and then to the agency, you see that this is ASIO footage of when the government used to spy on us. So we know actually from particularly as well as history and things that this is a big union area. And so there's quite likely a union meeting that was being surveilled. So yeah, it's amazing then all the different things by just those sort of basic words that you start to discover exist within the collection.
Very shifty looking pensions.
Yeah.
Definitely up to no good.
Yeah. There's men skipping over a fence rather than opening it in a second. So it's shocking. We actually had another request, the NAIDOC Week Awards. Someone from the ABC rang up and they said, "Oh, we're giving an award to Auntie Dulcie Flower. Do you have any photographs of her?" And I was looking through the collection and I found some, and I'm like, "Yeah, there's surveillance photos from a meeting in Redfern." And she's like, "Oh, no, we can't use those." She looked fantastic in them. Like she was just like, you know, to be on the street. One of the things I love about this, is he going to do it? Yeah, good work. Yeah. One of the things I love about these kinds of records is, you know, there's a history which is not 100% positive in the creation of them. I think we could all sort of agree. But then what you get from it, which is real people and what they looked like and what they were doing and where they were, is incredible. And you were talking earlier about the historical, the girls creating the nurse uniforms and things like that. You can actually see what the fashion actually did look like for real people, not just the photographs and things like that from all of those kinds of records. So yeah, it's the easier footage. So I'll show you in this how that came about. So that's the item record. And if you click in to the series number to see which government or agency made it. And so again, the title for the series doesn't give that much away because it just says film and sound recordings, multiple number series. But then you can see that it has a description note about it. And so it says this series consists of film, etc., recorded by ASIO since 1949. And it lists quite a few of the places where the different surveillance took place. Yes, yeah. And again, if you go back in, you can click on the agency, the controlling agency, and that will take you into the agency record. And underneath that links all the different series they have. So they'll have ones with their photographs, with their paper records. There's even a series with ASIO, which unfortunately it's housed in Canberra, because I really want to look at it because it has canteen orders. I just find that interesting. But again, the agency note will have sort of a history of the agency and its formation. And we'll have a thing with the, as we know as well, government agencies will quite often shift, and all of a sudden, like arts will include, say, the National Archives, and then the National Archives will go over to under security and things like that. So we'll have the mechanisms of government that sort of that change who's looking after the records at different times. So it's a really good example of showing how moving up and down that sort of record chain of governance really helps find records. And so I wanted them to look again at the series and agency level using that sort of basic concept of Bathurst to see what other records would come up. So if we go into the advanced search and look at the series, and again, I just typed in Bathurst and also search notes. And there's a lot of different records in here, again, which makes sense of different migrant selection documentation for displaced persons, which nowadays it would be refugees. So is what people were called. And so then again, with the description notes, so Bathurst isn't in that series title, but it comes up in the notes. So it's about displaced persons coming into Australia and then going to different areas for training and resettling. And so again, these kinds of series aren't very well described at item level. These records only get described when someone specifically requests the record, and then it goes through an access examination process. So you're not going to find a list of a very long or complete list of names for these records. It's only when we go in and find them. But we have an example here of one of the records. So this is Eugene and Eva Pickle. Both of them are 25 years old. They were originally Russian nationals. Eugene was actually born in Shanghai in China, and Aya was born in Vladivostok in Russia. And when they arrived in Australia, their two children, Andrew, who was 6, and Catherine, who was 3. So these are always quite incredible records when you see them, because quite often they will have photographs, and they'll have x-rays of people's chests to see if they had tuberculosis, medical histories and descriptions. And quite often it's interesting, then there'll be different ones where there's a description of sort of why they've come over, if it's their religion, but sometimes people will try and obscure that because of the persecution they received and things like that. And this is the process where people might change their names and things like that. So it's again a fascinating sort of selection of records. And so then if we go back in again and go by the agency search, and again just go Bathurst and also search notes, in this one we get 15 different agencies that have Bathurst in its title, in its description. So not surprisingly, I think Government Railways is one of the main ones. But when I looked at this series, there's actually no items described in it at all. So there's nothing linking underneath it at all. So it's only through that sort of description at that agency level that we can actually even know that these records exist in the archives, and sort of go about finding them and covering what's in them. That's it. So that's a really big sort of an overview of sort of how you can pull lots of different things out of the archives. And so what I'm really interested in doing by presenting today is either today or further down the track, getting people's feedback on how we can be of use to everybody else. I went out a month or so ago, and that's why I ended up here, to the Hawkesbury River Family History Group, and did a talk there about how to find things. We can do webinars, and we have lots of different resources. We also have a big building in New South Wales where we can host meetings and do tours and show up preservation. So one of the things I had in mind was sort of being able for you to be able to book with us, for us to come out and give talks. We also we're very lucky in the New South Wales office to have a big preservation team with paper and photographic. So I've been talking to our preservation unit about, if we come out to give talks, potentially having someone from a preservation team come too and talk about how to preserve people's photographs and paper documents, and digital documents and things like that as part of that, to sort of share that knowledge with people to how they look after their records as well as find their records. So yeah, that's why I sort of wanted to come today and sort of see what all of you guys do, because on that groundwork, it's really fantastic, and yeah, to make ourselves available. So, any questions? Yes.
Just in terms of that 10% item level, are there any like kind of targets or timeframes in place around?
Apparently, we're going to have most of it described by 2030.
That's ambitious.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, we've got a lot of projects. We're really doing a lot at the moment to try and capture what's in the New South Wales office, to get an idea of what work needs to be done. The state and territory offices and Canberra have a lot of their records described. So it's, I think, very much up to the New South Wales office to be able to advocate and explain what the situation is, because the other sort of offices don't quite get it because it doesn't make sense because their records are described. We have records from every single state and territory office as well, because and so therefore being able to, there's a lot more richness in the records, but then also there's a lot more you have to sort of be across and know what's in there and be able to sort of retrieve it and describe it. So yeah, yes, there are plans, but how to go about it is one of those really interesting things. One of the issues we always face is all of our records need to be access examined before they can be seen by people outside of the archives. And so a lot of those can be done by survey, can be easily opened, but a lot of them have to have things redacted, or we have to have closed periods and things like that. So they'll always put through the calendars as well. Yeah.
If you had more queries coming through from, say, local historians or libraries,
yeah,
would that help to prioritise certain series being opened?
Yeah, yeah. Knowing what everyone's interested in really helps us sort of put those things together and argue for it. Yeah.
2 questions.
Yeah.
What's a control symbol?
Yes. A control symbol is like a unique identifier. It is a unique identifier technically, that has been created by the agency for the most part, or sometimes imposed by us. And then because it's sort of made by different groups at different times, it can cease to become unique. And so then you get a barcode as well. So a very good example is immigration records. The file number will get combined with the office that it was made from, the year it was made, and that should create a unique identifier for that person's immigration record. Or say the ABC will do a series where they have the year they decided to put the record into the archive, code for the format that it's in, and then the program number. So it could be 73/10-156. So 10 means it's a 10-inch quarter-inch. 73 meant that it was made in 1973 generally, and then the program number and things like that.
Oh, now I have another question as well.
Yeah.
Because if you go back a few slides at the beginning, you had some slides that had had all the little numbers down the bottom for the photographs,
yes,
for example.
Oh yes, yeah.
And I assumed that was a sense of like agency series item.
Yes,
numbers, but maybe that's a unique identifier. Maybe it's a control symbol.
Yes. So the citation is the series number, so the series that at the agency series, and then the control symbol. So right. Yes, in this instance, it's a that's an AV one, so it's a more difficult example because of the way we isn't it? But yes, so this one in this series, they have created control symbols to justify the person's last name and initial. And that's the thing, you can see across the different ones that they'll create different ones. And there might be agencies that don't archive things very much or don't create as many records. They'll just name it, number it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then they'll send in another one and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So completely sort of useless control symbol. So in those instances, we might impose things. And if you go back again,
Prince Charles.
yes.
Those ones. So that's
So,
what I was
yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, so this is a photographic series, A8739, A26, 874, 25, and 74, 20. So because the majority of those numbers are the same, you can see they're from the same set, and they actually number. And so I think that relates to the reel of film.
So that's the control symbol there.
Yeah, so
A26, etc.
yes, that's the control symbol for these photographs. And this actually numbers each one from this day in this area are A26/8/74, need 74. And then the last number is 1 and up to 33. So you can see sort of the way they controlled it in that system. But because it's not uniform in the way they're created, sometimes it can be difficult to line things up. But then Prince Charles, and then this one, this is another kind of control symbol. So across the different agencies and series, they use different formats. And this one, again, photographs a different photograph, but a completely different way of organizing the control symbol. And then Charles, again, another photographic one, KN3. K often means Perth. Yeah, so that's one of our Western Korean series.
I've got some questions from online.
Yep.
I think you might be getting a few people reaching out to you. One of the questions is, how do we contact you?
Yes, I realized I meant to put my email at the end of the thing. So you can email me. In these instances, if you have a question about a record, we've got a whole series of forms, and so we encourage people to fill those in, and then they get dispersed to the city where those records are, and they do the research. But
And what is your email address?
Yes, so do you want to type it into the notes if I give it to you?
Yep.
So it's Rachel, RACHEL .Cullen, CULLEN at naa.gov.au. There's
I've
a few.
got another question too.
Yes,
from that. Are there plans to make your film video content available selectively? NAA has some amazing ABC audio visual content, which would be a great record.
Yes, no. Yeah, so yes, we do have a fantastic collection. They occasionally put things online. There's different issues with agencies like the ABC and SBS. They sell copies of their records, so we don't make available copies of their records, even though we also look after them. But then we have other agencies like Defence and all the other ones, and ASIO, as we see. We don't have the mechanisms at the moment to make them available online unless we deliberately put them up on YouTube. But it's always something that's under discussion, and there's more of a push behind it now. Because of the nature of who we are, we have to be really careful with cybersecurity and things like that. But there's that change in technology now where there is that possibility of having that airlocked space where we can have access records and sort of make them available. I encourage everyone to go online to our YouTube channel. There's a new video up there about the digitisation of the joint sitting of Parliament in 1974, and that sort of process of digitising them. They came in from Parliamentary Services only last year. We created them and we were digitising them for the anniversary with the Institute. And because Parliament was broadcast on that day, because it was a historic moment, and it was broadcast in black and white, obviously, because television didn't go colour to the next year, but it was actually shot on colour, which we didn't realise until we actually looked at the tapes and went, hang on a minute, those dates. And so it was actually shown in colour for the first time 50 years at the 50-year anniversary in Old Parliament House. It's quite amazing. So there's a little video about that process. Any other questions?
So if we did request, if we searched it and found some audio visual and we're curious about it, can you still request it, or is that?
So you can still request it and you can view it in the research centre. But we don't give out copies without purchase. Yeah.
I was just wondering, in your community engagement, are you looking to speak with historical societies as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure the Bathurst one would be very interested in.
Yeah.
This whole presentation and what else that you do.
Yeah, we got very excited yesterday. We went to Chipley Home as well, and they've got an anniversary coming up in July and things like that. So yeah, every time basically I leave the office, I get excited about different ideas of things we could do. So yeah, no, definitely, we're very happy to. One of the sorry, now even though I wasn't asked a question about it, when you were talking about plans before, and I mentioned to a few people, one of the fantastic sources we've recently digitized that unique to New South Wales is the Australian Women's Land Army cards, registration cards. So they were set up as one of the services during World War II, but they were never fully recognised as an official service because the vote came just after the war ended, so it didn't end up happening. And so then across the different state and territories, the records were sort of just destroyed and expanded. But we kept the records. So there's all these index cards, and it's basically just someone's name, their home address, what their occupation was, and then what regional areas and farms they went to and what work they did. So it might be someone from Mossman who was a dressmaker and she ended up in Orange working on a farm there and things like that. And sometimes they have little notes. And I love the idea of being able to pull out all of that data. Just looking at the record is fantastic. And there'll be little comments about someone that was a bit of a troublemaker, talked after lights out and things like that. And there's but it's yeah, being able to harvest that information and see that sort of picture of how women contributed to the war on the home front and things like that. There's always all these different fantastic collections. Yes.
When you're assessing records for access, what's your criteria for privacy considerations? Like just when you were talking about Women's Land Army, then, you know, obviously that's going to tell us where this person lived in Mossman. Like, do you have a year cut off or something?
Yes. Yeah. So we have the Archives Act gives us a lot of the parameters for that. And a really interesting example is always the DBA files, because they're very, very popular. So Veterans Affairs, so quite often they're hospital records of servicemen and women, and family members will request them, and we will have taken out big chunks. And so it might be quite it can be things, and we won't specify necessarily what it is, but we'll use our sort of policies and frameworks that we have, and people will be concerned because they want to find it. One of the issues with those records is, and with the archives, is if we make it open, then that's available basically to everyone in the world, especially if you have it digitized. So if it's your family record, it's much better to get it through the agency under a network warrant, because then you have access to it instead and things like that. So there's lots of different frameworks that we use for it. And it can be frustrating when you're looking at it because it's not exactly clear what it is. But say for immigration records, there's different periods of times where it was almost like a matter of form that got a stamp from ASIO saying, yep, this person's fine to come in. It doesn't mean anything happened. There was any investigation. It was just part of the process. But under law, you're not allowed to ever publicize an ASIO employee's name. And so they always get redacted. And so again, you might see something and see it's redacted and think, you know, there's a key bit of information, but it's just a blurry stamp. But it's really important that we sort of follow those laws as well. Any other questions? Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. That was really, really interesting. I think there's a lot of people taking up on your offers. I think we go to lunch now. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep, it's lunch till 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Very earnest. Welcome, first of all, to Bathurst. I'm from Bathurst. And thank you for inviting me to speak. But most importantly, welcome to this building. Apologies to any Bathurst people who have heard this story. This is 21 years in the making. We go back to 2000 when I started as collections manager for Bathurst Regional Council. We had Chipley Homes, National Motor Racing Museum, and Bathurst Regional Art Gallery. We had those museums, a lot of collections. We were really good at the front of house at the display. We were good at promoting, but back of house was garbage. It's not unusual. And you guys may be in the same boat, but in the local government world, that's how it works. A conversation back there between myself and the general manager was about, Dave, you've got to stop collecting. You've got to stop collecting stuff. You can't just keep collecting stuff. You've got nowhere to put it. Stuff's getting lost. Don't want to say lost, it's getting lost within the system. It's getting lost in the various rooms. We had pest issues, temperature issues, security issues. And we weren't able to really use them properly. We didn't really have the resources to catalogue fully. The volume was big, getting bigger. Anyway, we just thought, okay, let's start looking at resolving this. So what we had to do was basically land at something like, how do you store a whole lot of stuff in different sites? It's going to be really expensive. You've got to duplicate everything. So where we landed was like, hey, let's centralise. Let's just build one shed. Thought, okay, let's see. We just asked the government, give us a whole lot of money to build us a shed to store our stuff. Surprise, surprise, they didn't give us any money. We sort of pushed along for a few years. A new museum came along, Fossil Mineral Museum, another 5,000 items, science specimens. Right through to 2019, another museum, the Rail Museum. Thankfully, it's only about 900 items there, but we've also, in that time, sort of merged in a School of Arts collection from Bathurst Library. There's another 2,000 books. We've got our civic collection, so that's all those items that every council acquires. Might be sister city stuff. Sporting groups come to town, like memorabilia. We acquired that. Plus other extraneous sort of collections that were non-museum on site. And of course, when we had the Bathurst Regional Art Gallery collection, so that's now 2,500 items. We were really struggling. It wasn't until we got a business case together, and if anyone wants to go down this track, do this early, do this first up, get your business case in order, engage an independent group who sat down, did a whole lot of work, a whole lot of consultation with us and the different guys in the region. So that's the neighbouring councils, neighbouring museums, galleries, local collecting groups, got their feedback, looked at what we had, so our physical spaces, our collections themselves, and also spoke to various industry stakeholders. And they came back with the idea of, don't do stuff for just yourself, do stuff for the region, which we did. So it really sort of changed everything we did then, and we turned into a regional repository. So hence the title. It's not the Bathurst Regional Collections Facility, it's Central Tablelands. Very quickly, we were able to get hold of good funding, 2.3 million from state government. Council threw in 2.3 million from a community development fund. Land with this. Super proud. It's what it is not what we expected. Yes, it resolved our immediate problems, but it sort of put us in a space with a whole lot of good extra positive. So our stuff is stored. So we'll see in a minute. We've got about 2,000 square meters of prime storage. That equates to 6,000 cubic meters. We now have to talk cubic and volume and this other enterprise that we've got. We've now got digitization spaces. That's something we could never ever dream of doing and not doing properly. We try to photograph stuff in the back of the gallery or the Mode Museum. You have to wait for people to not be around. You have to wait for no public programs. You get it all set up. All of a sudden you come in, because you've had to from another site, you come back, someone will like disassemble and set up something else. So we've now got those dedicated spaces. Pest control, we've nailed. That was something we couldn't even look at controlling before. Yeah, any bugs were entrenched in the building, so bacteria, carpet or anything like that. We couldn't do anything about it. So we used this whole thing as a fresh start. It introduced pest management systems, so an IPM, pest management programs, as well as methods of control. We resolved some other issues like desks. So I've been hot desking for decades. In the preceding years before this, we got a museums manager, a public program manager, got a museums admin officer, and we've now got a collections officer who works with me. We had nowhere for these people. They're now housed along there. Corridors, squeaky shoes, you'll hear as we walk along. Council's records. So they're on that side of the building. They were in an area that was flood prone, so they could never put files below that height. That would run back. So they've been put into a new building, new location, but also with other staff. For years they've been really left alone, been really left in from a communication point of view. Then so we had these other flow on. So this room, which was designed basically as a workroom for working of objects, which is what everything's got carpet. Now it's expanded. It's local studies workshops and done museum training, photography, pest management. We've got another one coming up in a few months for the local guys. Council uses it now a lot, too much for meetings where they want a little bit of privacy, away from the chamber, but also just various groups. And groups clean up with it. It's really nice. We've got the viewing rooms down the back, and we've sort of designed it so everything is interlinked. You'll see that as we go along. Other benefits. So when you've got like 17,000 items ranging from race cars, dinosaurs, coaches, like through the stamps and things, not only do the objects get damaged, but the people moving get damaged as well. And one really nice outcome was once we started moving the gear in, we realised, oh wow, at the end of the day, we're not going to hurt for the first time. It was fantastic. Because before we would have to scramble over things, we would have to pile things on top of things, or it was bad practice. I had no choice. We in that original project, the build, so get around that, and again, if any of you do this, get a control group together, So project management team. So that was our museums manager, Janelle, myself, collections. We had our engineer who ran the contract, and then our director of cultural community services. So that ran for like 2-3 years. I think for the project. That was really vital. That kept us on track, and also made it easier when you're reporting to the funding group. So that was for New South Wales. Being really connected with sales. It's good having these other people to, you know, you can have conversations beforehand, make sure you're all on the same plane when you're talking with them and reporting. And another really nice outcome was the groups that have now been looking at us thinking, oh wow, this is actually really useful. So we thought, oh yeah, we just get a storage share. And we thought, okay, we've got money, let's go along, speak to someone else who's built a local government level community-based storage shed that will do all material, all media. And of course, no one's done it, which really that's a bit of a pain. We really had to do a lot of homework ourselves. To get around that, we did a separate consultation, again with our local users, but also with those that have built storage facilities in Sydney and Canberra. Yeah, so they were all absolutely fantastic, gave us really, really good practical advice. Okay, all but you know, they were big repositories there. You have a fields, Council Hill, and Mitchell and Canberra, but the basic operations very similar. So we really listened to them and introduced that into what we've done. And then out of that, we've got these other relationships, and those relationships have now turned into dollars for us. So we all went through COVID. We all saw what COVID did to local government, and state government, independent government. But it really hammered us, and at the moment we're really under the pump financially. But it's good. We now generate a lot of money using our available space to store items belonging to other institutions. So that's private people, as well as, you know, there's the community-based people here who we give a discount to, but larger groups pay top dollar that they would otherwise be storing in Sydney. So that's been a really nice plus. We never thought we'd get there. We realised very early on, other local government users, that this is a model for disaster recovery. There were one of these in each region. You've got somewhere where, if you have time and you've got an impending disaster, you can get your gear into somewhere safe. But in the event that you haven't had a disaster, here's somewhere where you can spread your stuff out and do that very long process, that very expensive process of cleaning the items, working on the items, sorting it all out. That really got the attention of those that got hammered in Liverpool and burnt on the south coast. This model was really good. So these will be popping up around the state. We've had our own individual needs at the start. Others will vary that according to their needs, but hey, it works really well. Digitisation that we've got, that we really haven't been able to get into in a big way yet, because we're 2 years in and we've still got, well, we've got 10,000 items on site. We've still got another big collection to go. So that motor museum, when it's in, we can start hammering the digitising. So we really need to merge our catalogues with captured image and then start getting that online. Speak to people, speak to everyone you can. By us doing that, we got a whole series of grants. We got $300,000 of art wrapping given away by one prominent art collecting group, 5 years old. Fantastic, that's in there. We got another 100,000 for essential gear, forklifts, nitrogen generators, trolleys, dollies, photographic gear. That was through the gamblers in New South Wales through club grants. Another grant was digitising. Create New South Wales knew about this because we've been hanging on about it for so long. They gave us 50K to be the host of a statewide digitisation project called Storyplus. So while we act as a hub, Bathurst District Historical Society, Rockley Mill, Ag Station, all those groups with no money were able to borrow the gear that we got through the grant. We could process, we could not do processing. We organised training through the powerhouse here on site. So all of a sudden their gear is now hosted at the state level and for the added to over time. This building's connected to council down there with a dedicated data fibre link that runs past the library. You guys have got huge data needs. Comes back up, there's a gallery, a museum, chiefly, and past our front door, it'll link to the mount again. A big user of data. We now own that. We were paying 25 grand a year rent for data. It's all free, and council now makes a little bit of money by renting that data out as well. So we got onto that simply by talking about the project for a long time. Other collections that really into you guys are the School of Arts collection. Was it 1951? So the Public Libraries Act. That collection.
I don't remember when it actually came over to us.
Library Act was 1939.
Thank you. We had an old School of Arts in the centre of town, and the original collection from there was held by Bathurst Library. Then in 2000 or so, it landed on the state register, heritage register. So the library had been looking after it, but it was very inaccessible. It was regularly getting rained on by the failing air conditioning unit upstairs. Full of bugs, but it's now living up here. We've got a Department of Education collection that we've moved up here. So that was part of a bigger collection the library has. We've got one part, we've got the other part that was still in the hands of the local fellow. The library one will now sort of come up shortly. So where we've got to get to, this is like another to-do is get those used by Bathurst Library, used somehow. We look after the access, but we got to. The reason I mention that is it's just one of the range of stuff. Video, textiles, like I said before, cars, coaches, dinosaurs, lots of rocks, other rocks, and paintings, prints. We've got a range of things. Then when motor comes up, striking leathers, things like that. So we got a very broad and diverse collection, which is why it's laid out as it is. We really had to do a layout that we couldn't chop it up and have a dedicated room for glass plate needs, a dedicated room for fabric. Too expensive. We only had X amount to work with, so we went with a generalised approach with security controlled by myself and the collections officer and the museums manager. Any collection owner, so that's my museum, gallery, they just have a chat with us, they come up and have a look at their stuff. Same way that anyone who has, any non-council people who has stuff in here, they've got to go through us. If you have stuff here, you can't just walk in, it's just controlled. And we've sort of been able to work, expand on that with that slide links to the control room at the Australian Museum. And they've got a dedicated camera and fob, so they know when we're accessing their collection. Again, free. They gave us 20 staff up here cataloguing, photographing their collection, threw in large compactors that was twice the size of what they needed, but they didn't use it. Put in their own server, the camera, that's it, and we didn't pay a cent. Yeah, we've learned to be borrowed still. No shame at all. Let's go have a look. So, like I said, this is our workroom. Leave your bags here. There's a couple of things inside that you can't photograph. For commercial reasons. The rest of it, yeah, stuff in the distance. So photos. We're going to walk through as if we're an object.
Which right there. Yeah.
Out on country this morning with a film crew from Belgium. Yeah, so we did apparently it's like this big like it has this big media following over there, TV, and you don't really know the importance of it all until you sort of get in the space with it. Only a few people could speak English, but they got the gist of it. We did a Welcome to Country for them, and we've had this lined up for a couple of months now, and it's pretty nice. A lot of the students are like the I say kids, they're young adults. They've never been to Australia, can't speak English, all have Down syndrome, and communicate really well. So that's where I was. I woke it up, and I did have my boots on, and I had to take them off. And it was really hot out there. So we said to them, the backstory to it is Belgium is winter now. It's cold and miserable and wet. And they love being in Australia. I was like, well, today's a nice day. Tomorrow's going to be even hotter. But they're here for a few days, and they came out to Wiradjuri country to go on country and be present. So we did a welcome and explained to them about what cultural protocols are, and the importance of contact, like, you know, making, I suppose, contact with First Peoples like myself, who are traditional owners and elders with knowledge of the country, and it was really beautiful. So that's where I've been. And then in my other life, I worked for Charles Sturt University part-time, and before that I was in Sydney for 5 years. So my background is education. I'm a teaching fellow now in the School of Psychology, and lucky me, I'm marking. No, I ran away. It's probably recorded now, so got some papers to mark. But my job that I love the most, I think, is being a mum and a parent and a grandparent. That's probably the most important thing that I do. Been in education for a really long time, and I love doing what I do. There's one fly in the room. There's hundreds of flies out there, but one fly here wants to just talk to me. But I suppose what I wanted to talk about was thanks for the invitation to come and talk about what we do and what I suppose lots of questions around what we actually do and what traditional elders and knowledge holders what we do, what our cultural responsibilities are. And I think that this year more so than ever was pretty important for us because this was the year of Douloin, or the 200-year commemoration. These are just some of the activities that we did this year and over the last few years. Before we want to talk about anything too, is I think I put them all in a good order. I hope they're in order. Yeah. I'd just like to acknowledge country. To do a welcome to country or a proper welcome, like that wouldn't happen out on country, what we did with those young Belgian people and their cast of many. But traditional welcome to countries are always done by elders and knowledge holders. And the reason why we do that is, does anyone really know like what it actually means? What a welcome to country means? It's about keeping you safe. It's not about spoken words like this. It's actually about keeping you safe. So before Australia was colonised, we had our own individual nations and we had our own boundaries. What do you reckon the boundary is to the east? You're all in Wiradjuri mode now, so yeah. The mountains, Blue Mountains, that's shared country is what we call that. So there's about 10 different nations that have custodianship of that place. The boundary to the north is the Warrumbungles, over which is on this side Wiradjuri, on the other side it's Gomeroi, right out to Nyngan, and the neighbouring nations out there are Niamba and Nipa. And to the south, it's over the Murrumbidgee and into Yorta country. So Wiradjuri is the biggest nation. So our cultural responsibilities are pretty big. And we had big clan groups, we covered the largest land mass. But a welcome to country really is about keeping you safe. So the way I explain it to students and to little people, and I'm not saying that that's what you are, but when you explain it to them, they really understand it. So it's like you're invited to my house and I'm going to tell you where you can go and where you can't go. And it's like the protocols that sit inside of country. So, you'll tell me where the bathrooms are, where we're going to sit and eat, like where you can and you can't go. And the first thing you need to do is state your business. Why are you here? What do you want to do? Where are you going to? How long are you going to stay for? And things like that. And around all of those cultural protocols is the cultural responsibility falls on us. And that's what Wiradjuri actually means. Everybody pronounces it wrong. It's not Wiradjuri, it's Wiradjuri in the old language. And Wiradjuri is Wire being known and Jure being having. The people of the know having is what we are. And that means it's my cultural responsibility was to look after those young people who came all the way from the other side of the world to walk on my land and on my country and my ancestors. So it's a pretty huge responsibility. And there's been lots of talk about it lately and over the last few years, especially about why people do welcomes and an acknowledgement. And the reason being is because there's actually a tradition behind it. And we as First Nations people have a cultural mandate to keep people safe while they're in country. So it's not just spoken words, it's acknowledging who we are, where men's business is, where women's business is, where the food is, where the good places are to live and to sleep and where we're going to have ceremony. And it's also about, like I said, mainly about the transparency between and the cultural exchange that happens with each other. So this is just a little one, but we call it the time of the Gujeen, which is creation time for us. It's the very first sunrise. And I think that, does anyone have any questions, ask, because I will just keep moving. And the reason being is we like to, not really like to talk, but just, I think, they'll see that bar thing, won't they, at the top? Can we hide it? Where do you hide?
I'm not sure about that. Oh, yeah.
Is that it?
No, they're not seeing, they're not seeing that at all.
Alrighty, is that okay?
It's us that's not seeing, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that this year is, this is a 200 year. I don't like the word anniversary or commemoration. I don't know, there's just something about those words. But there's a few things I wanted to talk about, which was Douloin. And but this year being the 200 year commemoration of the Declaration of Martial Law. Is everybody familiar with that? Yeah, good. So that was back in 1824, and we call it the Wiradjuri resistance. And it happened right here in this part of the Eastern Nation. In our language, we call that, this part is the Plains Country. So it's Gunigal, Main, Raju, Dillam, Plains Country. And there were 4 big clan groups here, really big. And they were the ones, I have an Apical ancestor that goes back to one of those clan groups. And also Uncle Will, who gives his apologies to his ancestor was Winterdyne. And and also Yana, like our young, our Apical ancestors stood beside Winterdyne. Winterdyne was a head warrior. Wiradjuri had lots of head warriors. He wasn't the leader of the Wiradjuri. He was actually a head warrior. So he was the one who lived here in this part of country. And everyone, Uncle Bill will tell you that he was a young fellow when all of this was happening. But this year was did anyone come to Douloin? Yeah. So we had a whole week of it's like commemorations. And this has taken like 200 years in the making. The responsibility is like fallen on people like myself and others. And so we decided to pick the word Douloin, and Douloin means this down the bottom. The truth, that which is direct. The truth, like it's the whole truth, nothing but the truth, like standing your truth. So in our language, there's like Yinjamaravuye, which is our law, LORE law, and then we also have like terminology that sits inside of our graduate governance, which is Gariyava, Guyama. Talk straight, tell the truth. And then Douloin comes after that. That's about standing in the truth. So we found that this word Douloin it was really straight to the point. And that's what we decided to call this week that we had of commemorations. And we just didn't want to think about like what happened to like our ancestors and to our warriors, for our old people. It was about honouring like the fallen on both sides of the war. There was like I said earlier, that Wiradjuri being the biggest nation, we had the biggest, like, I suppose, army of warriors too. And it's written into the history books that they push back. So after Eora, which is Sydney town, was after they set up the penal colony down there, then they came this way because they were looking for new land. People don't really know this, but there was already convict slaves already out here in Wiradjuri country when they came out. Don't know how they got here, but they were here. So, I think that for us, it was about telling the truth, and I'm talking about shared modern history that we have as a nation. And a lot of people don't want to hear it, but I think that that's the only way that we can move forward, is if we have these uncomfortable conversations. And by that, I mean talking about what happened in the past. Because white Australia inherited transgenerational wealth, however that looks for you and for your families. For me and my families, and my mom, we inherited transgenerational trauma, and we still carry the scars and the wounds. And so drawing was about talking about that. And I think that for us, like, you know, if I was only born like probably 56 years later or earlier, it wouldn't have fallen on me as this responsibility. But I think that, you know, this book here, Gujara, which is written by Dr. Stephen Gapps, that's really, you know, was one of the pivotal things that not we didn't rely on, but was able to bring these conversations like into this space. And I think that, like, there's lots of different nations and lots of different things that have happened. And who learnt this at school? Nobody, eh? No, me neither. I used to get in trouble for talking about stuff like this and get kicked out of class because my grandfather was a freedom rider back in the 1800s, and he was one of the first people who actually stood out the front of town hall back 100 years ago, literally, and was doing this, what I do. So it's in my blood and it's in my DNA, and I suppose that's part of being a little bit Irish too. But I think that, and tell me about the keep an eye on the time. I'm terrible, though. You don't wear a watch. This is sort of what happened. It was gazetted as a, you know, a war of extermination. That's what they called it, and they almost did. They're the people who were responsible for it, the men who were responsible for it. The reason why I put this up here, we did this presentation at one of the local high schools, but when it was gazetted, this is the proclamation here. But when they gazetted this, it's only a little tiny little paragraph just there like that. And you get this stuff off Trove too, like pretty, if you know what you're looking for. But do we know who these people are here, these men? Sorry. Yeah. And yeah. This is the real picture of Lachlan Macquarie. This one. It's a funny story. Can I tell it? Yeah. They said he wasn't manly enough looking. So what does that even mean? And because we did a project down at with the Sydney Living Museum, it's on exhibition at the Hyde Park Barracks. So we get to dive into all of the archives, and that was one of the comments. But they said he was too ugly. And so the other picture that you see of Macquarie is the brother. So they said to him, "You're not manly enough looking. So where's your brother?" And so they did the brother. So I thought it fitting that we put the real picture up of him. I was like, well, when you look at the brother, they look really different. But I think that it's about truth telling, right? Like, because, you know, people have, I went to Macquarie University because my niece went down for an enrolment and she got accepted. So we went for a wander while she went on a tour and had an interview, and they've got this gigantic big picture, like it's huge in the library, and it's Macquarie. And it's the other picture, the brother. And I was nearly going to go over and say, that's not Macquarie. That's his brother, Bob, you know, John, Billy Joe. Like, this is the real picture of him. And I think that, like, it's things like this that, like, we wanted to tell the truth about, like, we wanted to talk about. And I think these things don't happen either without community support. And these things, like events like this, don't happen without, like, the support of, like, not just the local community, but people in the community. And also, like, you know, businesses and things like that. We had no money. We had about $5,000 in the bank, I think, and we had nothing. Which sort of brings me to this. This is the now. Yellow in our language is now, like the present. That's my picture. I took that up at Walu after the corroboree, and I just sort of wanted to, I love that picture because I'm not a photographer. But we went up just to check it out to make sure everything was clean and tidy before we handed the keys back to council. And yeah, I ended up capturing that sunset and it was beautiful. I want to talk about this because this is probably the most important thing. This is what we decided to do. And like I said, the responsibility falls onto us. So this is Uncle Bill, who's Winderdine's descendant. This is Jade Flynn, my brother Yanandarable. And like we've got other members of the corporation that like to work in the background. And we decided this year, like earlier on in January this year, like, what are we gonna do? Like, we talked about it for 20 years. Then we talked about it for 10 years and then 5 years. And then it just sort of jumped on, you know, came in and it just happened. It's like, wow, this is really going to happen. What are we going to do? We looked at our bank. We didn't have much money there. So we could just do a couple of things, you know. And then what do we want to do? Like, so we scribbled down lots of ideas and the main thing was about truth telling, like, and to share this in a culturally safe space. And also it was about reclaiming language and also wrapping everything in language because language protects us. Like, that's a part of our identity, it's part of our heritage, it's a part of who we are as Wiradjuri people. And so we wrapped everything in language. And this is just a few of the photos. I like to talk to the photos because I don't want this to go to sleep, you know, in this part of the afternoon. And, you know, all credit goes to Garee Films. Pat and his team took all of our photos for us, and he did an amazing job. Local, very talented, and was really respectful throughout the whole process. So this is the first day we were downtown at the Carillion. So we smoked the town, this one. So that, my son was driving that car. It's his car, but it was a bit funny because we said, one of the uncles said way back, who passed now, we should smoke this town, get rid of all the, we say gussies and hawkies, like spirits, bad spirits. So we thought it was funny. And next thing you know, we had a meeting with the inspector and the second in charge. And there's like, yeah, we could do that. Really? So then it sort of happened. So that took like 3 months just to get the paperwork organised so that could happen. My son, who's a truck driver, but he drove the car, and I sort of had to explain it to him what he needed to do. And then I said there'll be a police escort, blah, blah, blah. So, oh, yeah, do that. So there's these amazing photos that we have of the centre of town where we actually like smoked the whole town. like the centre part of town. And it was really important for us to do that because you know that where the courthouse is, that sits on the sacred song line from the Womble all the way up to Waterloo. So it's a walking path. But where the courthouse is, we've got an ancestor down there who was a caretaker of that place. We say Mujigala, security guard. Think about him like a security guard. Barinya, his name is. And it was important for us to cleanse this place, especially down around the courthouse. Because you know, in the back part where all the, where the bats like to migrate to. When that place is not occupied, we actually liked it when it was all fenced off because lots of terrible things happened in that place. And that's the history of this community. So for us, smoke in the town was really important so that we could help some of our ancestors and also some of those colonial ones that were stuck here too, in the in-between, to move on. This is, it looks like there's lots of pictures of me. I don't like having photos of my pictures either. I was like, what am I going to talk about? But this is my granddaughter, my niece, and there's uncle, and we were out the front of the Carillion. And this, you'll see, this is Jazz Money. She's Wiradjuri. She's from down the southern part of country. My nephew there. And like we started the week off at the Carillion to smoke the town. And then we all made our way down to the Womble, to our scene circle, which is the young brothers here getting ready to dance. And we did our official welcome to country there. And it was pretty amazing. This is Uncle Bill, his exhibition that was at BMEC, and it was about We Bleed the Same. Liz Deep Jones is the lady who actually put that together, that exhibition. And her work, if you got a chance to go up and have a look at it, was amazing. The pictures that she took of Uncle was beautiful, and I translated it into English. This is me talking to the Earl of Bathurst. He's all right. I gave him a job too with her name, because it's a bit funny, I reckon. Like we were Zooming with him overnight, and it's like I was trying to work the time out, but anyways, like I'm not Italian. I'm actually got Irish heritage, but I do talk with my hands. And I think it was a bit intense there because we told him about his friend. We sent the Gujara books over there. He actually read it, and he gave it to his friend too, the king. So we know that they read the books. Well, they got passed on. He read it, and he's been tasked with a job now. But he kindly let us give us permission to dive into his archival documents, and like this, literally like boxes and boxes and stuff. I don't know if I could sit on a plane that long to go over there, but I'm glad that he came over. He was pretty gracious, and yeah, he just looked like a normal visitor, really. I don't know what you have to do when you meet people like that, but I just thought he was okay. And I was walking him through the actual our art exhibition and talking to him about a cloak that Macquarie stole from one of our ancestors. The highlight for us was the corroboree, which is at Waterloo on our celebration site. The reason why I wanted to put this together and let you know about this one is because my ancestors and my old people haven't danced on this part of country for over 200 years. And we invited different people to come in, and it was really, they came from Yuin country, Gomeroi country. There was Wiradjuri, lots of Wiradjuri, lots of locals, a couple of local schools, and young people from out of our community. And this was pretty amazing because the thing about this, the morning of the Wednesday was the 14th, which was the day of the declaration. It actually rained all night and rained all day. And then we got up to Walu, and I was just like, oh. I said, we took them all down to feedback to do their final rehearsal. And when we got down there, I was just like, I sat everybody down. We split them all up into the genders. And one of the things that we talked about was like training when it rains in Bathurst, it pours. Like we had, 4 seasons in one day. This is winter. And everybody made a commitment to Deloitte, not to us, but to Deloitte, but to country, that they were going to dance in the rain. So we got up there about 2 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock, and set up camp. And the sky just opened up, and it was just amazing. Like if you haven't been to a Walu sunrise or a sunset, look how beautiful it is. And yeah, that was probably one of the most special things that we did. And I think that did anyone come? Yeah. It was pretty amazing. It's a lot to organise, because lots of things have to happen behind the scenes for this, for dance to happen. But for us, though, it was really important that we be up there at that particular time, and also not only that, but to be closer to our ancestors and country. And I think that just because people always ask, and we've always been asked about places too, like Walu, because it's height, the elevation. And you'll notice this with all sacred parts of country at high points. The reason being is because it puts us closer to our ancestors and our creator. So places like Uluru, Walu, they all sit on sacred song lines. So song lines crisscross the whole nation, but there's song lines that are really sacred. And this is where things like this can happen. And they're elevated at like a really, right, like Uluru, like Walu. And it was such a beautiful afternoon, evening. But when the sky opened up and then the blue, it was just amazing. But I think that these were just a few photos. I could have probably put a whole, all the slides up, but it was pretty amazing. And just the fact that lots of people travel from their homelands, like this small beer, like they're from down the south coast. And, everyone came from everywhere. And they all did their own dance, and they all had their own costumes. It was beautiful. This was the original declaration, and I put it up there because I was sort of, I just wanted you to have a look at it. Has anyone ever read it? Do you know why they declared war on Wiradjuri? Yes,
because of the I know that it's been referred to as the Potato War, but because Wiradjuri people were starting to were getting pushed off the land that they fed from, and they started growing crops and everything, and then am I on the right track?
Maybe. So they came down the Fish River. So the idea was that with the penal colony being set up down in Sydney, because that's what Australia was set up for. It was set up as a penal colony. That's what it is. It's written in the history books. It's in our oral history. And the thing is that what we need to remember is when they realised, there was lots of I was going to say another word, but muckery, you know, because they had to bring out convict slaves. My grandfather was a convict slave, and he was Irish, and he ended up out at a place out here in Bathurst. So I have two types of connections to country here. But in saying that, you know, they were looking to explore and move and expand the colony. And so that's how they came out here. And they didn't just walk over the mountains on their own. They had some Aboriginal trackers that came out. And they came down the Fish River. Winter and I knew about that, and so did the Warriors, because they already had got a message and they already got a message from Pemulwuy, who was one of the warriors down there in Bidjigal country, which we all know as Laperouse. And they had already had an exchange, and so Winter and I had known about this expansion. And what happened was, fast forward, they came out, and one of the first reports was by Evans. He said they were just minding their own business on the river and things like that. They didn't sort of realise, you know, just going about our daily routines, I suppose. And that's how it was documented. But we know a different story to that, which was they knew they were coming. We knew that they were looking to expand the colony. And like I said, there was already convict slaves out here. Don't know how they got out here. I would really like to ask a few more academics about that, but they would have got into trouble for being here, squatting, like on, you know, like on land, on country that hadn't been given a land grant by that time. And so we are British subjects. We still are, because we don't have constitutional recognition, which may have happened last year with the voice, the referendum voice. We're not recognised in the Constitution. So we class ourselves as flora and fauna, which, you know, we're all British subjects, and you can't declare war on your own people. So that's when they declared martial law to bring in the you know, the armed forces really to, you know, to bring in peace. But the potato field incident that's happened, we drive over that massacre site every week. It's out at Kelso, where the footy ovals are. That's where the massacre happened. And it was over potatoes. Antonio Jose Rodriguez, he was Portuguese. He had about 10 different aliases. He was I call him a double agent. He was a bit of a, he was a convict, but he also ran with the bush rangers, and he was like a double agent, and not in a good way. And the incident happened between him and Winterdine's family. So Winterdine lost 5 members of his family that day, and that was more or less the start of the beginning of the end, we could call it. And then it led to this. It's not documented very well, but we found pieces of academic sources and resources with our work with a lot of different universities over the time. But there was where Bunnings is, and you come all the way along the Wamburl out all the way to Eglinton. That's actually swamplands. So it's traditional swamplands. It's wet. It's wet all the time. We're wet forever. And we, migratory birds come from South America, and our people used to feast on them. So it's like a big supermarket, like Coles or Woolies or, Aldi, whatever, wherever that's what it was like. And so it's not written in there, but down the bottom there, see where it says it says here about the, women and children were to be harmed. The that didn't happen. 45 head, they round them up on the horses out at Kelso in the swamplands. And they just killed them, the women and children. They were minding their own business. And they chopped off their heads and put them in jars and pickled them and sent them back to the homelands, back to England. And that conversation I was having with the Earl, I told him we want our ancestors back. There's 45 in pickle jars over there. And he was aware of it. He actually did his research before he came out. And also our artifacts. That's just some of the things. But this is that young lady I pointed out, Jazz Money. This was a part of our exhibition down at down at Bragg at the art gallery, and I'll never get it. I don't know what it is, so someone's going to have to remind me. But that declaration we just looked at, this is it here, and it's spoken word or something. And so in her piece that Jazz, in her exhibition, you just take out different words, but the words actually sit in exactly the same spot. So when you read this, like this is the declaration, which is I just showed you, and then these three here is what Jazz took out of it. Something to, I don't know if it's spoken word, no, that's not it. Something to do with words. And it's poetry. I'm not a very good poet, so I wouldn't be able to work that out. I think I'd mess it all up. But this is Bathurst actually, council actually acquired this through the art gallery. So this will be something that, you know, if we decide next year to do something else, or if it's every couple of years, we'll be able to have a look at that. I just wanted to point out a couple of things too before I stop talking. These are some of the this is some of the things that we lecture to, and this is like for us, this is our truth. So this is drawing for us. Like some parts of Australia, like there's 60,000 years. I can take you like west. I can take you just out the road. Really, there's parts of the country that where I was today that are more than 60,000 years old. There's a camp oven that I had the honour of visiting out on near Park country, which is right out west, Lake Mungo. It's a camp oven. It's 125,000 years old, and it's exactly the way they left it. You know, there's places like that we all need to be learning about, especially through our education, you know, systems, and our schooling. And everybody knows where they got the word terra nullius from, the doctrine of discovery. Yeah? No. You've got lots of homework, people. No. And these are just some of the things that we wanted to point out. I'll go right all the way down to the bottom here because I want to talk about it. Go back if I can. Did I muck it up? What did I do? Hang on. Yeah, forward. This one. Yeah. The Legislative Parliament. They couldn't declare war on Wiradjuri people because it was just unruly. There was no policing. You know, they were running amok. And one of the things they did back in 1823 was they created the Legislative Parliament. It's 200 years old. First thing they ratified was the Declaration of Martial Law. Yeah, think about that. And I think that that was also when they formed the Mounted Police, which is the oldest police force in the history of the world, apparently, or let's say the Commonwealth. The Mounted Police, and they cut their teeth out here in Wiradjuri country. And I think it's really important that we talk about this stuff. So this is moving forward. Gira is the future, and I want to talk about this. If you want to, these resources are available on IATSIS and those websites. When part of our role and responsibility, like in the corporation, was to, one of the things we wanted to do was we work with IATSIS down in Canberra, and is put together documents and teachers' notes and learning units of work so that it can be embedded into the schools. It's all free. They had a grant. They came and spoke to us in that room just there, and we decided that we was going to work together as a team, and we ended up taking over as part of the community participation. We led that space, and in particular the corporation did. I decided that upper primary was the targeted audience, because there's no way you're going to talk to little people about this stuff. But these resources are available. If anyone, if you know teachers, or if you know educators, or you know people who want to learn more about it, they're all available. And all you need to do is just go to the IATSIS website and click on all teaching resources, and the ours, the Dawai and the Gujara ones are right down the bottom. So like I said, they're free, they're pretty academic, they have all sorts of teachers' notes and ways that teachers can be embedded into their education, schools especially, but also even if you want to learn about it yourself. And I think that just mindful of time, but the future, what does it look like for us? As I'm not Australian, I'm Wiradjuri. What does it look like us, as a country? Does it have to wait till the next generation to do this? I think that we needed to take the initiative in this space, and it was a really big job to do. And it doesn't happen without, like I said, community participation. Not everyone wants to hear this stuff either. People just want to sweep it under the carpet and don't want to address it. And that's not okay, because, we're supposed to live in the lucky country. Lucky for some, not all. But one of the things that I think here is this, I don't want you to go away thinking that this is a blame game, because it's not. This was an opportunity for us, Wiradjuri people, who are direct descendants of those apical ancestors that fought to protect country. This is a frontier war. This is a homeland war that happened right here. And for us, we needed to talk our truth. And we're not blaming anybody for that. We just need to stand in our truth so that, we can have a more restorative future together and have these conversations. Because I'm a mum and I'm a grandmother. What happens to our little grannies and what happens to our kids in our families if they have a fight and it goes unresolved? I always think about situations like that. In my family, there's 7, it's going to be 8 soon, and they're all friends, and they're all cousins and brothers and sisters, and then they fight. But it's always someone's got to sort it out. And we do it Yinjamarra way. And so, you know, I want my children and my grandchildren to grow up and be proud of who they are, about their Wiradjuri heritage, but also, like, because that's how they identify as Wiradjuri and Gomeroi. And then we also have an Irish heritage. And our grandfather was a convict slave who grew up just, you know, was born off the ships by a fellow by the name of Thomas Ravenhall. He was the land grant man, giving out the land grants. He gave my grandfather a conditional pardon after 3 years, and he ended up living out at a little place called Rainham, which is on the Purple Road. I had the pleasure of going into that house. So I step it back in time. I had to touch everything too. I just did. He thought I was a bit crazy, but I was like, oh, it's beautiful. And I'm a history nerd too. And they became friends, Thomas and Michael. And then he got Michael to go up to a place called Dundallamore, which is one of our clean groups up in Dubbo, on my mother's country. And my grandfather managed the property, but you sort of know it at Wellington, Mount Arthur. Mount Arthur is the big mountain at the bottom at Wellington. On the other side, there's birthing side. And my grandmother was a midwife there, which was on the property of Dundallamore. So that's how they met. I don't know how they met because she couldn't speak like English, and he couldn't speak Wiradjuri, but like here we are. It's always love. People say, you know, oh, it's probably love. Well, I think so too. And I carry my grandfather's name proudly now, 200 years later. I think that it leads to these conversations about being a good ally. And the conversations, you know, where they should start at home, with our families, with our friends, you know, educating yourself, and being conscious about, like, you know, how you do it. And all of this stuff here came about because I was thinking about Des Moines and what we actually do, because we lecture, and we've lectured to like thousands and thousands of students over our lifetime in the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And we always give them a takeaway. And I think that, you know, we sort of want people to think about Australia and what really happened and how we move forward together. But I think that there's probably that's all I wanted to talk about. And I hope that you liked it. The last thing, lucky last, is this one. Save the date. The 14th of December, which is a Saturday. So the 11th of December was when the declaration was, what do we say? Ceasefire, you know, it wasn't a truce, it was a ceasefire. Wyndra and I walked into Parramatta on the native National Festival Feast for Aboriginal people. Brisbane did, down in Parramatta, and that was the 11th. And that's when the ceasefire happened, and we were supposed to be offered a treaty. The closest date we could get to it was the 14th, which is a couple of days after. But this is what we want to do. We want to celebrate that, and we want people to come back to Bathurst if you're not, or come to Bathurst. And we're going to have our art markets back, and we're going to have a big concert, and it's going to be probably a memorable year. But you're all welcome to come. Everything's free. Support all the artists. They come from everywhere. They travel, like, you know, some travel just from out the road, but others travel, you know, like kilometres and kilometres away. And everything that is inside of the tents, they make, and you know, we give it back to community. But that's what I wanted to say about that. And if you haven't yet questions, how do you do this? How do you do it in your community? You have to have the conversations. And you have to have like people in your community that are actually willing to come stand next to you. You have to have people in your community who, you know, willing to put in that work too. We're lucky because we have people, like it just looks like us three standing there, but there were so many people that came and supported Des Moines. We collected all the data. The exhibition for Bragg that Jonathan Jones and myself curated. So in that period of time, there's only 2,000 people that go through the doors down there in one exhibition. For Bragg this year, for our exhibition for Des Moines, we had 6,000 people walk through the doors. Yeah. So, you know, like I said in the beginning, we started out with, you know, around $5,000. I'm only guessing, but we applied for lots and lots of grants, and we were successful with most of them, bar two. And all of those, so everything that we was able to do through Des Moines was grant funded. And we had to do those acquittals. We started to do them. And part of that acquittal, this is where your volunteers come in too, is we had a digital resources. So when we did our acquittals, we actually sent through digital resources, which they were really impressed with. And it's people, you know, like Career Films who, you know, who actually took all the photos and made us look good. But community really, really plays a big part in this. And we wouldn't have done it without the allies and, you know, just some of the local businesses. Supporting local was always important for us. We got, I might get it wrong, but I don't think so. Everything that we did for Des Moines come from in town, so we supported all the local businesses, you know, and that's really important for us to do that as a community, because a lot of our, you know, local businesses and small businesses struggle. You know, we've just come out of a, you know, 100-year pandemic, and there's lots of terrible things happening in the world, but one of the things we wanted to do was make this event free and make sure we supported local businesses and also our own mob. And we did that. We're not events managers either, but it was pretty amazing. But any questions? Probably not. Yep.
Firstly, thank you so much for that. It was just incredible to hear, so thank you. I'm just interested in that you mentioned the film company that makes with those images. Do you have any plans for the future with all of that?
Yes, yes. Like we've got like drone footage. Like we've got like and it was really interesting because nobody's got any money. We're like, yeah, we know. And when he walked in, he's like, I've got no money, but I can take photos. Like, oh, okay. And the photos are amazing. And we wanted to put together, we want to sit down and like just like have a checkout. And places like Charles Sturt University, they were really kind with their support that they gave us. You know, we had people like Uncle Bruce Pascoe, we had Auntie Marcia Langton, we had Rachel Perkins, you know, we had all these important people come into our community. And it was just so good that people, you could have probably charged everyone $100, you know, and we would have been rich at the end of the day, but it wasn't about that. The photos and everything like that, what we want to do now is like sit down and have a yarn about it and talk about the backstory to it. because we've been approached by other Wiradjuri clean groups to come and help them. And it's just like, yeah, we could do that, but you need to have a good crew around you. Like we fight like cats and dogs. I always win. No, yes I do. And they just give up, I think. But like, I love the photos because it sort of captures like, you know, everything that was happening. And, you know, thousands of dollars came into our community that week of Deloitte, and it was really good to get that data from the Commonwealth Bank, you know, to say, well, we did do this. And, you know, it was really important, like, for people to learn, you know, without putting my hand in their pocket and being able to pay for things. So definitely want to do something with all those beautiful images. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. One thing that you sort of didn't talk about too much was the 2-day lectures that you had, which were amazing. Just hearing from all of the different Wiradjuri academics and thinkers and everything. I'm sure everyone here would be interested in that content. And I think you mentioned before that you're looking and putting it online somehow.
Yeah. So we had, that was, we all had our own jobs and our own roles and responsibilities, and people are good at things like Yana, my brother there in the middle. He's good at, he's a techie, like a geek. He likes all this techie stuff. Like sometimes I mess it up, but he makes it look so easy. And like what we did was we all sort of worked to our strengths. And being an academic and being an educator, I had the idea of having like a conference, which was the Thursday, Friday, and that's how we got everyone to come in. And that was pretty amazing, but that was like 2-3 years in the making, just moving people around and see who, you know, how you unpack it. And also like not really personalities, because I wouldn't allow that sort of thing. It's just like, this is not about you. It's not even about me. It's about truth telling. So leave your ego at the door. If you don't, well, don't come in. You know, I was pretty, no, I was, yeah, blunt. But people were really amazing. The one who I reckon was the funniest fella, what's his name? David Mark. He had to sit right next to me. And we were sitting there and nobody knew this, and I'm glad I wasn't mic'd up, because we had spoken to him like the week before. Now, the Killing Fields or something, or Killing for Country. He's a Queenslander, so that's probably why this happened. But he was sitting there next to me, and he said, "What are we doing?" And I said, "David," I said, "we talked last week." And it must look really funny because nearly like the whole, like the lecture theatre was put full, and he's asking me what to do. I said, "I told you last week, mate." And then it was just like, then he got up and then he just sort of sways around and starts talking. And you know, I think them sort of things, and like they're good memories to have. And we were, you know, we were honoured that he travelled such a long way to come down and like talk about stuff like that, you know, the history behind it all, without, and he's not funny either. It's like, yeah, real bad dad jokes, but it's really funny. But it's love that he came, and you know, our community got to like listen to him talk, you know, because this may never happen ever again. But for you, if your communities ever want to do stuff like this, it starts like with a conversation. You know, what happened here before? Who was here before? You know, you have a terrible history like this. But how do we do this? You know, everyone has to be uncomfortable in that space, even including us. But yeah, save the date, come back and join us. And bring your money and support, you know, as local businesses. They're Aboriginal owned and operated, and a lot of the arts and craft they make, you know, they do it themselves. And, yeah, and supporting like local communities too. Any more questions?
I have one other question
Yeah.
about the markets, because they were really good as well. Are they the same artists as before? Or
Yeah.
like additional ones? as
Yeah,
well?
and a couple more.
Will
Yeah.
the chocolate seller?
Yeah,
I know,
thank you,
yes.
Ray.
It's a really nice chocolate.
And it wasn't my job, because it was Jonathan, it was Jono and Yanis, because they wanted to be the events organisers, but I was going around just checking everyone, just making sure everyone was okay. And then I got to the chocolate place, and they had a chocolate, they had a little chocolate. I had to hide them because my grannies were there too, and I was just like, the chocolate is good. Yes, yeah, but pretty nice stuff. And I think that, you know, we need to do more of this. And we have to celebrate too. We have to celebrate our strength and our resilience as individuals, but also as communities. And I think that these sort of conversations need to happen, you know, in order for us to work together and resolve some of those things that have happened in the, you know, the injustices. Because it leads to where we sit now, which is the social injustice, you know, the parity, non-parity. And if you can do it like this, then I think that it's a good thing. Well, we're lucky because we had lots of support from, you know, Bathurst Council staff, and they work just as hard as what we do for people in the different spaces. But I think that's probably all I wanted to say about that. Thank you. You should ask them, do they have any questions? Hey?
Did
I
anyone
did ask them, but they didn't.
Oh, that one. Yep.
Yeah, maybe doing business next week.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our details, if you like wanna like have a yarn, or you know, if you're thinking about doing stuff, anything like that, we're not professionals or experts by any means, but we're always up. We can always be contacted through our email, and you know, if you ever come out to Bathurst, and there's more than just a race circuit up there. You know, there's lots of hidden things, and you know, and I think that everybody needs to walk on country, especially with the First Peoples of this land, and get a different insight into it. And the reason why we've had custodianship for so long, and we all need to protect this place, you know, not as individuals, but as a collective. But the ladies have like our contact details if you want to have a yarn, and you know, you want to do something like that. Yes, and you need a boss. Obviously, yes, I enjoy a boss.
Thanks, Leanne. Thank you. We'll probably finish up now. We did have 10 minutes.